ставши на коліно, своє полкове знамено, дивлюсь на нього я востаннє, у нез'ясованій журбі, всю кров мою, всі скитання, воно вібрало у собі. Всю кров мою, всі скитання, воно вібрало у собі. Відвагу нашу нашій волі, загиблих друзів імена, читаю нашого вімолі, я полкового знамена, дивлюсь на нього я востаннє, у нез'ясованій журбі, всю кров мою, всі скитання, воно вібрало у собі. Всю кров мою, всі скитання, воно вібрало у собі. Усе, що разом пережито, в походах вистраждано все. Я знаю, інші гордовито прапороносець понесе. Дивлюсь на нього я востаннє, у нез'ясованій журбі. Всю кров мою,
Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великой страны.
Найкращий пастух баранячий хотар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні. У нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів. Робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить. Хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар? Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ. Тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, everybody. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 236 of the news and another night of fundraising for Ukraine.
And of course, we're going to be reporting on the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine, and we have massive news today as the Ukrainians have begun a brand new counteroffensive. Just last night, when we started last night's news segment, the counteroffensive had begun. The Ukrainians have requested that there be immediate blackout in the area, but from initial reports, the progress is incredibly swift, and we'll be waiting to see how swift it really is and how successful the Ukrainian forces have been once more. Once again, setting the bar for the amount of victories you can get in a row. But before we move on to tonight's news, we have to make a special little announcement. It is Sunday. The Sundays are the days that this channel always runs the fundraisers, hence the name, the Sunday Fundraiser. This Sunday fundraiser is being run exclusively for Revived Soldiers of Ukraine. Revived Soldiers of Ukraine has done an incredibly good job helping out the soldiers of Ukraine since around 2018, helping soldiers in the Ukrainian armed forces that have been injured in some very severe ways. Some have even survived headshots due to the support the Revived Soldiers of Ukraine has been able to give to them. And I guess you could say rehabilitation services as well as medical procedures that they help support. They are an incredible organization. Operator Starsky, who has been a guest star on this channel before, has actually had a friend who has survived thanks to the incredible work and help that Revived Soldiers of Ukraine was able to offer. And so if y'all throw in some support, that support is going towards helping out a soldier on the battlefield who has been wounded. And speaking of which, some of y'all may be thinking, well, it wasn't that long ago that Revived Soldiers of Ukraine was being run as a fundraiser on this channel. It was like a week or two ago. And the reason why we're running it again is because this counteroffensive has just taken off here in Kherson. And of course, with the counteroffensive or any kind of offensive, casualties will be coming in at a much faster rate. And so I would like to try and help out all of these brave soldiers that are helping to fight and die to retake Ukrainian lands, to see if we can get them enough help to make sure that less of them die and a lot more of them are in a better off condition than they would have been. And so please make sure to help out Revived Soldiers of Ukraine. I've already thrown in my $100 donation for the night, and also, just in case if anyone wonders, just so that way we can get this out there, this fundraiser is being run directly through the YouTube Give system. So unlike other channels where you throw in a donation and it's like, where does that really go? Because sometimes it's to a PayPal. With the YouTube Give, there's certainty that it's going directly to the fundraiser that is being raised for. If we type in YouTube Give here on the search bar, we can see right here on support, google.com, YouTube Giving, which on YouTube is called a YouTube Give. I don't know why Google calls it YouTube Giving, is designed to help strengthen the way creators and fans interact with the charitable giving on YouTube. Some videos and live streams give you the option to donate to a nonprofit that the video creator is supporting, which I am. YouTube covers all transaction fees, so 100% of the money you donate goes to the eligible nonprofit. Donations to nonprofits are non-refundable, and then you can read YouTube's FAQs for more info. So it is the safest way that we fundraise. This is the only way that we fundraise because it's the only way we trust. Of course, a lot of viewers have always made it clear, and a lot of y'all are probably here tonight, that y'all will be totally fine with me running a fundraiser through PayPal or something else like that. But I want people that come to this channel for the first time ever to know that this is a place that you can donate safely and have full confidence and faith, knowing that your support will make it exactly where it's supposed to go, and it doesn't end up in the hands of someone who is taking most of it and then making it sound like a lot of it's being given away, or, something like Elon Musk, who makes it sound like they bought all the Starlinks and then they only bought 15% of them and the government bought the other 85%. And so with that, getting beyond all of those disclaimers for tonight's fundraisers, it looks like we're already blowing our way towards 10K. We're already at 3,000, and we will check back on that in a little bit after the first news segment and Matthew blowing out his vocal cords. And so moving on into Russia, we're going to start off with the situation on the home front, because I think this is probably incredibly important in showing that the situation in Ukraine is going to be unfazed by the mobilizations. Starting off in the town of Tver, we saw some more drunken and disorderly Russian conscripts here in this video. And so here's the video, and it also has a translation, luckily enough.
Ты должен быть трезвым, а мы нет. Бухому типу выдать оружие. Вы что, человек в сильнейшем алкогольном опьянении выдали боевое оружие, блядь? Гранаты, может, ему еще... Ярославка на месте. И что, вы в себе?
Городка в деле. Здесь, бля.
We got top-notch idiots out here on the front lines.
Офицеры вот стоят. Нож где?
Of course, they're in a drunken ramble, all of them are.
Мой злодей. Товарищи солдаты.
Jeez, this is a motley crew. All of them are walking like they're sauced, aren't they, Matthew?
They really are.
Someone yelled out, guys, stay next to your belongings. Because, of course, like the last video we saw from yesterday, if you leave your belongings in a Russian camp alone, they will be stolen by someone else.
Где все командование ты делаешь сразу-то? Куда, товарищ подполковник, ушел? Куда делся командир части?
Проебался.
Куда делся товарищ подполковник? Я.
Что? Я не учил. Квадрокоптеры летают по пьяни орать. Но вообще из офицеров вас не так много с нами. И мне удивительно то, что мобилизованные... В отдельном виде. Что? В бумажном виде, пожалуйста.
Look at this guy. I mean, I was just noticing this, Matthew. This guy, to be an officer, that's probably going to be somewhere close to the field, not in an office. This guy's got a gun.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, I mean,
he
like,
looks disheveled too.
Yeah, honestly, this guy looks like he just crawled out of like a trash heap, and now he's telling people where to go and what to do and all that crap. This guy does not look like an officer, to say the least. Also, what's Robin Hood doing over here? You know, like with a hooded cape.
The
and
guy
everything.
on the left.
Yeah, this guy right here.
Wow.
Like, he's got on the whole breastplate, the hood, and everything. He's about to go deal with the sheriff of Nottingham here in a minute.
Иди, мы дадим тебе на пузырь, блядь.
Да. Алкаш ебаный.
What the?
Was he wearing a sailor's shirt or like a boating shirt? What was that look?
I don't know what any of this is. He's wearing a VDV beret. He's also wearing the silly, stupid blue and white striped shirt that the Russians just adore. But look at that facial expression. What is this facial expression? It's like blank. It's almost like a mask you would put on. Like, this is just weird. The whole video so far has been really weird, but this is taking the cake right here.
Человек в пьяном виде дает тревогу солдатам. А вот, смотрите, командирский состав нервно курит в сторонке. Блин, камера херня, конечно.
It's Popeye.
В смысле, зачем я это делаю?
And then apparently the guy at the end of the video who kept on mouthing off behind the camera, someone said, "Why are you doing this? What is your last name?" He turns around and turns the camera off and starts trying to hide in the crowd. But that's the end of the video. Once again, you can see these conscripts are not put together at all. It looks like they have no training. They're now being given weapons and equipment to go to the front and fight. They're being boarded onto the trains right now. And the situation now is far worse than it was probably when they were just being conscripted. I don't think, and this is one thing I have to keep on making clear, these conscripts are going to make any kind of difference wherever they go. In fact, they're going to be a major disservice to the Russian units that are already on the front, considering that they will most likely have to be pulled out of reserve, if there is a reserve at this point, to fill in the gaps where these units have been obliterated, and also where they're literally dissolving. They will probably dissolve once they arrive at the front lines and chaos ensues. Moving on down into the town of Belgorod, we've also seen that the Ukrainians have been attacking the city of Belgorod quite well and quite efficiently with their cruise missile batteries that they have, although it's a much smaller amount than the Russians. Here we can see in this video the Russians trying to shoot down incoming Ukrainian missiles that are targeting strategic infrastructure inside of the city of Belgorod. And so here's the video. You see one of the missiles flying over? Quick, make a wish!
Смотри! Она вниз идет. Смотри сейчас. Он еще! Смотри!
Нет, не словила, не словила.
See another missile, apparently.
Я вниз пошла.
And it hit something. Wait a minute, hang on. I don't think that hit something. Let's look at the bottom left real quick, Matthew. Oh! It didn't.
I can't tell what happened.
I can hardly tell what happened. Can we slow... We can't slow this down. It looks like something blew up a little ways behind that building, like a half mile behind, but I can't really tell for certain. No, it didn't. I think that was one of the surface-to-air missiles exploding. Oh, Matthew, this guy is wearing a Beebus. He's got the 2 stripes instead of the 3.
He does. That's crazy. 2 stripes.
Yeah, it's real. I always thought it was fake when everyone said that the Russians had 2-stripe Abibas tracksuits, but it's real. They actually ripped off Adidas at some point with a 2-stripe tracksuit.
Вот, смотри! Не, пацаны, погнали домой, я ебал!
With that, they're now walking off, and the video ends right there. And it looks like the Russian air defense systems were highly active, trying to shoot down these missiles the best they could. We can see another video in broad daylight of that occurring just hours ago. And so here's that video. When you see the streaks of the surface-to-air missiles being fired from somewhere around the Belgrade airport. And we can also see something erupt over there. What in the world is that? And it's a big explosion. It's quite sizable, actually. We hear those silly sirens going off again. We can also hear a car alarm going off. Whoever parked the white sedan at the airport, your alarm is going off. please turn it off. But what in the world is that explosion? You wouldn't believe it while this drunken Russian in a stupor walks past the camera, but we actually have an answer as to what that thing exploding in the distance was. And some of y'all, actually someone just said, the Chow said, took out their air defenses. No, the Ukrainians didn't take out the Russian air defenses. The Russians took out their own air defenses. Here we can see the Russians blowing themselves up as a missile fails inside of its launch system, its silo, and then explodes, destroying the vehicle. Here's the video of that happening live, just right beside the vehicle. You see one of the missiles flying off, and we hear a massive explosion, and as we look back, we see that surface-to-air missile system just blew up after failing to fire off one of its SAMs. This is buffoonery at its best.
Нихуя себе, блядь.
Now, I gotta say, I would be very happy to know if the Ukrainians did use something like an anti-radiation missile to attack these surface-to-air missile systems, but I think it's far more embarrassing for the Russians to see that one of their own surface-to-air missile systems exploded due to faulty weaponry and also faulty maintenance. I think that's honestly a lot more embarrassing than it being destroyed by an anti-radiation missile. And so here we can see that the Russians, once again, are exhibiting the qualities that the second best military in the world would have. They are a raw superpower of unadulterated might. And I gotta say, it's good to know that their weapons are as good as their reputation. Absolute dog water. We're going to be moving on out of Belgrade now, and also pretty much the entirety of Russia, since that is all the news we have from there. And we're going to be moving into Belarus real quick as well, before we actually get to the big news in Kherson. In Belarus, we have seen over the prior days that Russian forces have been moved again towards the area of Gomel and Mizir, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and we have seen that Belarusian equipment has been shipped out of Belarus and into Russia, most likely to try and equip units with somewhat functionable equipment. We can see that happening again today as another military train heads on its way towards Russia, right outside of Fanipol, which is right near Minsk. We see here that this convoy is made up of mostly support equipment, supply trucks with trailers, some fuel trucks, some command vehicles, and it looks like a couple of heavy mortars. These are not Chulpans. I don't know the exact name of them. A couple of APCs, a couple of command MTLBs, and then of course a passenger rail car to most likely carry some of the crew with. This is a bit of a telltale sign that the Russians have run out of equipment, considering that they're having to call on their puppet state, Belarus, to try and send them some equipment to keep these units alive somehow, some way. Now, with that in mind, and seeing that the Russian situation is collapsing, let's go down into Kherson, and let's talk about what's going on down here. And before we begin, I want to say this real quick. There has been a media blackout once again declared by the Ukrainian government due to the situation and the ongoing offensive in the Kherson area. If you see anyone on YouTube that tells you exactly where Ukrainian forces are, where they're heading, and what they're doing, it's probably best to try and tell them to stop or to try and have them reported. The Ukrainians have requested that we do not disclose the exact locations, movements, and plans of the Ukrainian armed forces, and so we won't be doing that on this channel. And this time, I think it's crucially important to make sure that no channel out there sits there and goes, I think they'll be going down this road, and they'll be doing this, and they'll be attacking this town, and they'll be doing that. Honestly, there needs to be a little bit of more control on that, because I've started to see that it's started to spread from just 1 or 2 channels to now 3 channels are doing it. Now it seems like 4 channels are doing it. So let's make sure, everyone, to try and make a concerted effort that no channels violate this operational security of the Ukrainian armed forces. And with that in mind, all the videos we'll be showing that have been marked in the Kherson area do not disclose the location of Ukrainian armed forces. And the one video where we clearly show Ukrainian forces, that one video is showing helicopters, which doesn't really violate operational security, considering those helicopters won't be in the same place that they were spotted at 18 hours ago. And so with that, let's get into the news, starting off with a marker near Malove, where we saw that the Russians were trying to hold and use a T-80BV to hold this area of the line, but I don't think it'll be doing all too well. Also, Matthew, real quick, let's rewind this because I want to show you this because they cut this video pretty cleverly. They're trying to get away with this here. So the T-80BV is moving forward, the drone's looking at it, and you see that giant radio antenna?
Yes, it's about to smack the camera
yeah,
of
that's
the drone,
coming right at the drone. You can see the drone trying to veer out of the way, and they cut the footage right when that antenna was about to smack the drone and take it out. Right there.
Oh, yes, it definitely took it down.
Yeah, it definitely took it down. Once again, Russian stupidity at its max. They were taking out their own drones, but they still wanted to use the footage, so they just cut it right before the antenna hit the drone. We now see the Russian tanks moving forward to these trenches.
Растянешь, значит, я это понимаю. О, сейчас суетолог сюда попал. Этому левее. Скажи, это Хабаровск вышли на рубеж.
Где станция?
Хабаровск.
See the Russian tanks further down here in the south, firing into the field. It appears that round hit somewhere in the center of the field.
Туда же бьет. Без, хорошо, по цели суетолога отработал. Без левее. Без левее. Растянешь,
Where in the world is that audio coming from? That's not happening in the video.
Yeah, I didn't see it either. I was like, what is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a whole other audio that they took from another clip, and they just threw it in this one.
That's Ivan's bass in the background.
Yeah, that's the bass boosted hard bass that the Russians listen to all the time.
Без суетолог, смена позиции. О, это что, напрямую вообще встал, 4 на 11.
We see the Russian tanks still down here. We can also see some artillery landing nearby, and it appears that they're continuing to try and hit this tree line at the very end of this field. Of course, we don't know exactly where this is.
Пусть они переносят огонь на это.
Без, и огонь переносим правее, правее. Как приняли меня?
Ваня, 12. Один уходит.
Вперед на замену, вперед, вперед. Зевс, не торопись,
О, попал.
не торопись. Хорошо, молодец, не торопись.
Все левее.
Хорошо. Зевс, поменяй позицию влево, уходи,
It's
влево,
throwing me off how
уходи
they've completely dubbed in audio from some other video and put it over drone footage. Because common sense tells you that that drone wouldn't hear anything of what's going on the ground. Specifically, people talking right beside it from what it sounds like. It's up in the air. If it had a camera, all you'd be hearing is as the drone just sits there and hovers. So I don't know why they felt the need to throw in some audio from a whole other video. But with that, when you see the Russians desperately trying to hold on to the ground they have, but from what we've heard, although we can't say specifics, it doesn't appear that they held on to the ground for long. Moving on to the next bit of news, we saw that the Ukrainians were able to take out a Russian Tor system on film in the Kherson area. That's music. That's some pretty loud music. But when you see the Tor right there, and now we can see that the Tor's gone. Like magic. And now the thing is smoldering and cooking inside of its own pit. You know, just in case y'all don't know, here in the South, people used to cook brisket, and they still do sometimes, although this isn't the norm anymore. They used to cook brisket by digging these giant holes into the ground, and they would start a fire in there, and they put the brisket inside of it, put a lid on top, and it would smoke the brisket. This is almost what the Russians are doing to their vehicles at this point, is that they're digging giant pits, putting the vehicle in there, and just letting them smoke. And so I wonder, if we were to get a knife out and cut up this Tor, would it taste like brisket, or would it taste like Russian failure? I would have to say it probably tastes like Russian failure, because there's no way you're beating grandmothers with cooked brisket in the hole in the ground. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into our next clip, which is actually a clip of Ukrainian forces. Once again, they're helicopters, so this doesn't really give away any kind of pertinent information as to where they are. But we can see these Ukrainian Mi-24s firing at the Russians. And so, here's the video. We can see the helicopters flying over the tree line, also firing off their unguided rockets and popping their chaff and flares. Most likely just their flares. And it's so nice to see that the Ukrainian Air Force and their helicopter forces remained intact throughout a large portion of this war without the need for replacements. A lot of Ukrainian aircraft are still airborne at this point, somehow, some way, although their numbers were incredibly small at the start, and the Russians have always been claiming that they've destroyed the majority of the Ukrainian Air Force and helicopter force, yet we still see them in action every single day, and now we're seeing that they're supporting offensives in the Kherson region, a real slap in the face to Russian propaganda. Moving on to our last clip of news from the Kherson area, which we located much further south, although this still isn't accurate, we can see some Ukrainian tanks on the move. And of course, the field is a very indescript looking place, and this is something I was wanting to show to y'all. Note the heavy amount of moisture on the ground. That is clearly Rasputitsa. This is Rasputitsa season, as a matter of fact, right now. And so it looks like
that ground is moist.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird way to word it, but that ground is moist. I would have to say moister than an oyster, and I don't think that these tanks, well, Russian nor Ukrainian, will be having an easy time trying to traverse this. So hopefully the Ukrainians keep this in mind and have a lot of recovery vehicles around whenever their tanks are in operation, but this will make armored activities in the fields a whole lot more difficult than it ever was before. But we see these tanks here in this field, just on standby. And even more of them up front. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 Ukrainian tanks ready to push. And of course, look at that ground. I mean, like, that's truly Rasputitsa right there. And so with that, that's the end of the video. And I just gotta say, it's so nice to see that the Ukrainians have armor and that they're able to use it. And hopefully, once again, kind of like not trying to negate the positive or anything, but this Rasputitsa is going to be very rough for everyone. And I hope that it isn't too rough for the Ukrainians and they've found ways to either mitigate it or something similar. In case y'all didn't know, the Germans actually found a way to try and mitigate the side effects of Rasputitsa by widening the tracks on their tanks. And you can see some pictures of that in World War II examples. Let me see if I can pull that up off screen, so that way I don't pull up anything bad.
I wonder how hard it is for a tank to get through that kind of mud. Do they get stuck often?
They do. At the beginning of the war, we saw that a lot of Russian tanks and their attrition and losses were being taken because they got stuck in the mud, just like this Rasputitsa right here, whether it be in like kind of like a bog or kind of off in a farm field, they got bogged down a lot, and that was where a lot of early Russian losses came from at the beginning of the war. So I'm trying to find, everyone, the pictures of the widened German tank tracks, and I think I'm kind of getting close to an answer here. Here we go. All right, so let me get this one up on screen for y'all. Right here. This is a Panzer IV-J. And you can see right here that they have their normal Panzer IV tracks, and then you have these wider teeth that jut out from the sides of the tank and gives the track a wider surface area. You could also see that was combated later on in World War II history by tanks like the Tiger, which already just had an incredibly wide track base to begin with. But tanks like these, they widen the tracks out to try and give them a little bit more surface spread, so that way the weight could be distributed better on wetter and less sound ground. That is something that either side could try and do to mitigate the effects of the Rasputitsa on these vehicles, but once again, regardless of what they do, it's going to be incredibly difficult to get around this. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from this clip and out of the Kherson area, and of course I cannot say the exact kind of progress that the Ukrainian armed forces have made, but one thing I can say is that the heroism of these men to push this ground again and to retake it, hopefully in its entirety this time without stopping, is a massive feat. And one reason why we are running this fundraiser tonight for Revived Soldiers of Ukraine. A lot of these soldiers will most likely be wounded and killed in this offensive. Offensives are a very dangerous thing to undergo, and these men, by and large, knew the risks and have gone headlong into the risks and have faced them head to head. And to think that these soldiers have done that when the Russians would do nothing similar to that in any circumstance, it requires a lot of respect for these brave men who continue to fight on this front line every single day. And for that reason, if I could ask again, if y'all could support Revive Soldiers for Ukraine, this fundraiser is going towards helping out the wounded soldiers that will come back from this front line to make sure that their lives are not as bad as they would be otherwise, to try and help them find some kind of prosthetics, to help them be rehabilitated and go through muscle therapy and traction if need be. All of these things are helped out by Revive Soldiers of Ukraine, and those soldiers down there in the Kherson area could desperately need this help in the future. And so with that, I hope I was able to address that fairly well, and I hope everyone continues to support Revive Soldiers of Ukraine, and hopefully we can get to that $10,000 goal at some point later on in the night. But before we move on to the next bit of news, and the location unknown specifically, which we have some incredible ones tonight, we're going to take a quick pause, because this fundraiser has already reached unbelievable heights in just under 40 minutes. So we're going to address some of our polls and see how far this fundraiser's gotten. And so what do we got, Matthew?
All right, folks, and a report on the fundraiser. We're currently sitting at 5.1 thousand, actually 5.2 thousand, thanks to Edgar Marino's $100 donation, 5.2 thousand of our $10,000 goal. So we are a little over halfway there. About 30 minutes into the stream. So we're doing really good, and thank you all for your very generous support.
And of course, I thank you all so much once again for y'all's generous support as well. We've reached $5.2 thousand on the fundraiser in 40 minutes. At this rate, we might be able to reach 10K in the next 40 minutes. But then again, that might be a little bit wishful thinking. But we're still going to reach 10K before the end of the night, because we are steamrolling right now. The Lee Spring Army is truly an unstoppable force out here in YouTube, and we have never not reached a fundraising goal on this channel once. This is the 31st fundraiser this channel has ever run. Dang. And thanks to Fraser Skomorowski, we have just reached $6.2 thousand. We just had the first $1,000 donation for the night, and we are blowing up our way towards 10K. So real quick, Matthew, would you like to list off all of our top donors to tonight's fundraiser?
Yes, I would. Let me reorganize the spreadsheet real quick here and try to keep up with that chat, which is moving extremely fast again. Let's see here. We have that $1,000 donation from Fraser that we already called out. But Fraser, thank you very much once again for that very generous support of the fundraiser. That is the largest donation of the night thus far. Also, we have a $500 donation from Sylvester the Cat, as well as a $400 donation from Mark, Slava Ukraine. Then we have a couple of $200 donations. We have Jay Byrne, Brendan Henderson, and we also have one from Akor Kimney, I think it's how it's said. Hopefully, I'm probably butchering it, but we also have another $200 donation from DCC Prime 1, as well as several $100 donations. The first one is from Oates Air, also Malachite, Susan G, Kaltenberg, Mandy Carroll, Sharon Tukolsky, and then we have one from Evere Anthony, and that one that we called out from Edgar. Thank you very much to all of you for that support. We also have several $50 donations. The first one is H2O Barry Matt, then Super Bunker 9000, Greg Carrier, Dad Good, Justice Ryan, WL, AJ, Richard Bell, Cynthia Peller, William Allen, Auntie Defs, and Scott Kemp. We also just got a $500 donation from Trister1, very generous, and thank you very much. And just checking through here to see if I missed anything.
An anonymous donation from an anonymous viewer. We don't even get to know their name. Of 425 Canadian dollars.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. 100, 100, laughing face, smiling face. And thank you to everyone who's been sending in support to this fundraiser. We have now reached $7,500. We are now $2,500 away from tonight's $10,000 goal. And I'm wondering, can we reach that before the end of this question segment? I thank everyone so much so far who has thrown in any support to this fundraiser tonight. Y'all are helping soldiers out who will desperately need this help due to the wounds they will receive on the front lines. And I know that if they knew who was helping to pay for this rehabilitation and the treatments that they'll be getting, they would thank y'all incredibly. And I'm sure that y'all would all love to thank them for the great service and the hard work and patriotism that they've been showing on the front lines, helping to defend Ukraine and therefore the rest of Eastern Europe. And so with that, thank you to every single one of y'all so much once again. Y'all's support is helping out the Ukrainians massively. And so with that, we are now going to be moving on into answering 3 questions from the chat. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew? And also, let's cover those polls.
All right, so let me pull up my camera roll real quick and get back to that first poll. Let's see. The first poll said, do you think all the Russian conscripts in the first video are drunk? It looks like 79% said yes, they are drunk. 21% said they are mostly sober. Now, that's very interesting about the 21%. I would have to say that they're definitely drunk. And if they're not drunk, they need some severe help. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say those guys were drunker than skunks. I mean, they were walking around like they were drunk. They were talking a little bit like they were drunk. They were acting like they were kind of drunk. So by and large, I would have to agree with the 79% of y'all who said those guys were drunk. They definitely were in my... Oh my God! Oh my Lord! Mark is back and just threw in a $2,000 donation to revive soldiers of Ukraine, bringing us up to $9,000. Mark is back at it again. He is slamming out.
Gently. Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Gently put in at 500.
Use Gently. Gently used his $500 on tonight's fundraiser, bringing us up to $9,500. And my voice is now really starting to feel it. But I gotta say to both of you, Mark and Use Gently, I think both of y'all and everyone so far who's been sending in support to tonight's fundraiser, y'all have helped out massively in getting this fundraiser to where it is and other prior fundraisers to where they got. And so I thank y'all all so much. And everyone, give a huge shout out to Mark, and also make sure to give out a huge one to Alexander and Use Gently for all the support that they just threw in. Those 3 guys have just gotten us up leaps and bounds above where this fundraiser was just a second ago. We are now only $300 away from the $10,000 goal, just hardly 50 minutes into stream. And so with that, it's now finally time to get to the questions. And so what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so we have one more poll to go over, and this poll says, do you think this Rasputitsa is going to slow down the Ukrainians significantly? It looks like 41% said yes, it will, 31% said I'm not sure, and 28% said no, it won't. Now, from what I understand, it looks to me like it'll probably slow them down just a little bit.
Let's go!
Wait,
we
what?
reached $10,000.
Really?
Yeah, thanks to a $300 donation from Brian Abrahamian. We just reached $10,000 on tonight's fundraiser. Already, just a mere 46 minutes into the stream. I thank every single one of y'all so far tonight who's sent in support to tonight's fundraiser. We've already reached the $10,000 goal just 46 minutes in. And to think that we've been able to do this again on the 31st fundraiser in under 47 minutes is unbelievable. At this point, we've raised $550,000 in support for nonprofits that have been operating in Ukraine at this very moment with this amount that we just raised on the fundraiser. $550,000 exactly. We are now only $50,000 away from reaching the $600,000 mark on all of our fundraisers so far, and I've got to thank each and every one of y'all, both donations that are only $1 and donations that went all the way up to $10,000 and $15,000. Thank you all so much to each and every one of y'all for helping the Lee Spring Army to continue pushing forward in its goal of helping out Ukraine the best it can. Y'all are what have made this channel so great and so special over these past few months, and I got to thank every single one of y'all so much. I can't even say it enough for getting us to $10,000 again. All of this, of course, is in the YouTube Give system. I will probably show that nearer to the end of the stream during the last question segment, all of our fundraisers combined, so that way y'all can see the accounts, so that way we can show that there's a lot of transparency here with our fundraising, because I always like to know that we are able to pride ourselves on our funds directly going to the nonprofits in question, thanks to the YouTube Give system. And so with that, we are now going to be moving back to the poll. Can you start over from the top, Matthew, due to the massive news of the 10K goal being reached?
Yes, and also, Enforcer, to celebrate reaching our goal so quickly, do you want to tell the Leaf Spring Army about what we're working on in the background?
Yeah, you know what? Actually, Matthew, that's real slick. That's a real good time to throw it down. So, everyone, we've got a new video coming up. And this time, it's not made by me. It's made by Matthew. Matthew has been working on a video in the background, and it's pretty funny. I've seen it already, and it's pretty freaking
part
good.
Of it.
Oh yeah, part of it. Is there any way, Matthew, that I could show them that video, just a small segment of it with the audio?
So sadly not, because for some reason my Discord won't transmit audio, and also I got to double check and make sure that we don't have any copyright issues with anything in it.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That's true. We were just talking about that. It is a really cool video. I've seen a decent amount of the start of it. We'll be uploading it onto this channel, and we are going to see if y'all enjoy it or not. We are questioning right now, because of course we don't run ads on our streams, but we did find out that if we ran ads on our normal videos, they did get promoted more by YouTube, which is kind of lame. Honestly, I feel like you ought to just promote the content on whether it's watchable or not. But apparently YouTube must have some kind of monetary incentive to push the crap. So we started running ads on them. And we're trying to debate right now whether we will or won't, to see what's what. We might run it without ads just to kind of have like a trial video to see if y'all enjoy that type. Because if so, we might have, I guess, 2 different flavors of videos coming out in the future. Well, some from Matthew, some from me. I guess totally different in form and what they're covering. And honestly, that would be kind of cool when you think about it, Matthew. Like, you could have, like, Huge Enforcer Matt video fans and Huge Enforcer video fans covering different stuff in different ways. That would... Oh, my God!
Oh, dang!
Running Bear with $1,000! Oh, my
what do you
God!
Know?
Dang.
Thank you so much, Running Bear. That's generous.
Thank you so much, Running Bear. And look, it's a running bear. and we've now reached $11,000. Jeez. That is insane. This is one of those nutty nights, I feel, that where we're going to reach like 15K or something like that. But thank you so much once again, Running Bear, for the $1,000. That's going to go a long way towards helping out, and who knows how many Ukrainian soldiers that really will help out. And so with that, thank you so much.
But
once
Enforcer, I want to add one more thing to the video just to give the audience a hint. I don't want to totally blow the surprise, but I guess you could say it's a funny take on a very kind of serious topic. So it's going to be interesting. Some people will probably love it, and some people are probably going to hate it. It's one of those type videos. But I have a feeling you're going to really want to see it. So I'm not sure when we're going to release it just yet. Got to finalize everything with the copyright. Make sure we're not going to get struck on anything. Wouldn't want that. We love our kneecaps intact. But we'll let you know when we come up with a release date. But I can't wait for y'all to see it.
And of course, we are looking forward to putting this out here in the future. We don't know when exactly it'll be put out. Matthew made sure to have it ready for tomorrow. I'm just kidding. But Monday would probably be the best time to do it because we could do it as a premiere. But then again, I'm not entirely sure. We might just put it out whenever. It might just come out in the midday on some normal weekday. We're not really sure yet, but it does look pretty neat. I got some pretty good laughs out of it. Matthew threw in a couple of memes, and that's really tough to do sometimes because some memes are situational. Like, they will be good this week, but next week they'll be terrible. But I think Matthew's memes were pretty classy. I liked them. They were very there was very few of them. Most jokes were just normal, like kind of like slapstick or dry humor, and then the memes that were put in were pretty good. I mean, honestly, they're timeless at this point. So hopefully y'all will enjoy it, because if so, Matthew might start making some videos occasionally. Of course, there will probably not be any steady upload schedule with those, but every once in a while he might make one and it will be uploaded on this channel. And we've also been discussing whether there should be a second channel, but for now it will most likely just go here on the main channel. So with that, let's get back to you know what, we're gonna cover this poll. Do you think the Rasputitsas will slow down the Ukrainians? I think it most likely will, but once again, due to Ukrainian logistics being well put together, I don't think it'll be as much as, I guess you could say, the Russians will be slowed down by it, especially considering that they'll have to be moving around quickly to try and react to wherever the Ukrainians are pushing or fighting at. And so with that, I hope we addressed that poll very well. And now it's time for us to get into the question segment so we can answer those 3 questions and get on into the next segment of news.
All right, and first up from the questions, we do have one from WFTU and Mark Hodges, and of course, they have figured out the Morse code as usual. They say tonight's telegraph message says, Kherson will be Ukrainian again really soon.
And also, that is correct, and it will be Ukrainian pretty soon. I just saw something that you hid, Matthew, and I was like, that's a dumb take. We'll actually have to address that one here in a second, because I was like, yeah, that's something. Anyways, y'all did get the Morse code message correct, and I think that they will be retaking Kherson incredibly soon. Now, before we move on to the next one, I just saw that someone said, and we won't list off their name, but that they had 8 tours. OPSEC relies on the unit on the ground. The mere fact that your channel reports flag raising of Ukrainians is a break of OPSEC. Well, I don't think you... apparently, I'm going to have to say this. Apparently, you haven't watched our channel enough, because we usually show those flag raising videos almost 2 entire days after it happened, after the towns were taken. So maybe you want to chill with the high horse there, because we always make sure that OPSEC is a priority. Unlike other channels that will actually report where the Ukrainians are now and where they will be in a day or 2, which is a massive violation of OPSEC. So save your energy here, go somewhere else, and tell that to someone else. So with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, I have a special shout out and a question. This time, Jonesy puts in a live chat and says, Jack and I have donated $30 USD to revive soldiers of Ukraine in Australia. We can't donate on YouTube, so we went there instead. Jack says, Enforcer, what do you think would happen if Russia actually did somehow conquer Ukraine?
Russia probably won't conquer Ukraine. That's one thing I'm very certain about. But if they did, the situation would be incredibly odd. They would most likely try and annex a decent amount of Ukraine, probably the southeastern area, creating a land bridge in between Russia and Crimea, and they would leave the rest of this as a puppet state. It would be Russian aligned and very friendly with Russia. Russian forces would probably be allowed to base inside of here, and so the Russian front, I guess you could say, would be right on the border with Poland, like it is in Belarus and also here in the Baltic states. That's most likely what would have happened, but at this point, I can tell you with complete certainty that would not happen at this point. The Russian army is just too far gone. There's just no way that you could ever say that they will be able to take Ukraine and win. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, but I think that's what would have happened if the Russians were able to complete this special military operation in 3 days to a week. And so with that, we're on to the next one. I hope I answered that question fairly well, and I thank y'all so much for donating $30 to revive soldiers of Ukraine, because it helps them out a lot. And while it wasn't done on this channel, of course, it's still support, and I don't care where the support came through. It's just good to know that people are always thinking about these soldiers and the difficulties that they're going through and the challenges they'll be facing due to the offensives that are ongoing, and trying to help them out the best they can. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, I think we're on to the last one of this segment. So who is the last person who got the last question in for this segment before we move on to the news again?
All right, and folks, please remember that tonight we do not have Super Chat, so please send me your live chat questions by tagging me in your message at Enforcer Matt, so that way we'll have some questions to answer during our remaining question segments, because it looks like I only have about 15. So moving on to our final one of the segment, it is from Justin Nurse, who says, Enforcer, could Putin be talking about ending the war, be a tactic to slow Ukrainian advances and open the door to use weapons they haven't used yet?
And can you reread that one again real quick? Because for some reason the first part got muddled for me.
He said, Enforcer, could Putin be talking about ending the war as a tactic to slow Ukrainian advances and open the door to use weapons that they haven't used yet?
I don't think so. Usually peace talks are, I guess you could say discussion of peace talks are almost always serious in a way. Well, you know, some of them aren't. There are historical exceptions where they weren't. Just look at the Korean War. That happened a lot in the later years of the Korean War towards 1952 and 1953, and almost nothing ever came out of them. It was almost always used as just a reorganizing effort by both sides. So that is a historical, I guess you could say, there's historical evidence that may be an attempt to do something similar to try and help reorganize their forces. But I think that with Putin and Zelensky taking incredibly hardline stances, that there will be no peace negotiations whatsoever, and it's pretty much a concept of total victory by one measure or another. I think that the discussion of peace talks, especially considering that the Russians have been hardline on their stance of no peace, nothing but war for the entire time, it may be showing that they're trying to find a way out. I think they're most likely using that as an actual attempt to try and see if they can end the war instead of trying to regroup or trying to use more devastating weaponry. Because the only thing they haven't used yet is a tactical nuclear weapon, and that will bring in World War III. And so with that, I hope that addresses that question fairly well. Of course, that's not considering everything. That's actually a really it sounds like a simple question, but it's really in-depth once you start to think about it, and there's a whole bunch of ways that you could split the hairs there and start going down a massive rabbit hole, but I hope I answered that in a somewhat short and concise way. And so with that, I thank everyone so much. Go ahead, Matthew.
And Enforcer, real quick, let me call out a few more of our large and all of our top donations at the moment. We have a $400 donation from Naxus Fox. We also have a $300 donation from Brian Abrahamian. Also a $167 donation from Alexander Unique or something like that. Sorry, Alexander. I have a really hard time with last names. Also, we have a $100 donation from Fred Non-Hess or Von Hess. Also, a $50 donation from Ron Anderson and also Smarzig. So just want to go ahead and call y'all out so you don't get left behind. And thank you very much for the very generous support once again. I think we're up to, looks like 12,000 at this point. So doing really good.
Goodness. And I gotta say, $12,000 raised. We had a $10,000 goal, and we've already gone over to $12,000. Now, of course, Matthew, we've started to do this a lot recently, but can we throw up a poll asking everyone if we want to move the goal up to 15K? Because I think tonight's going to be that night where it's that unstoppable force, and we just surge forward up towards unbelievable goals.
Yes, I can put that poll up in just a moment.
All right. And so while we wait for that poll to be put up,
and you can go right ahead, Enforcer. Go on without me.
Actually, yeah, we're gonna go on without Matthew. So Matthew, real quick, we gotta make something dramatic here. Like, you've been shot. What are you gonna? How are you gonna say it now?
I've been shot.
Yeah, you've been shot. You're gonna tell me to leave you behind or something. Let's make it dramatic so you can move into the next news segment. Ah! Oh my God, Matthew, are you okay?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Yeah, whatever. We're forgetting that. That sucks. We're moving on into the next segment of news: the location unknowns, which are a really interesting set of news tonight. And sorry for the cringe. I was hoping that'd be pretty good, but then it didn't turn out well at all. And so we're gonna keep on moving. And into our first bit of location unknown news, we saw some Ukrainian soldiers think fast. Y'all may have seen the what was it, Matthew? Like the it was like on some episode on TV where this guy had a basketball and he said, "Think fast," and he like threw it at something and it broke.
Oh, I think that was like was it just a meme?
I don't know. I think it may have just been a meme. But with that, we are going to be moving on into this little clip where we can see these Ukrainian soldiers thinking fast and firing a stinger at a low-flying Russian aircraft. And so here's the video. Also, we're going to turn off that music. When we see the Ukrainians walking along this tree line, and we see the Russian jet right there. They whip out the stinger immediately and fire. Now that is a quick draw for a Stinger right there. Just look at this guy. They're just walking. They probably hear it a little bit. And shoo, there goes the Russian Su-27. And there goes the Stinger right here. Now, did they hit it, though? That's the question. I can't tell if they hit it. Can't really see it out there anymore. Oh, whoa. Oh, I think those may have been the bomblets that Su-27 may have dropped that started exploding in front of them. So we don't know if they got the jet, but you got to give them a huge amount of credit. That was a quick draw. To have a jet fly right over your head at that kind of altitude and have enough of a response time to have that Stinger spool up and then fire, that is impressive to see 100%. And so really cool to see. I hope that the Ukrainians continue to have those kinds of cat-like reflexes as the battles go on. Moving on into the next bit of news, when you see a Russian tank apparently have a mental breakdown. Now, I know someone's about to say, well, obviously it was this. And I can't say that on YouTube, so I think that this crew is lost, and they're driving in circles. And they've driven in circles so much, they've created a Rasputitsa bowl. Like, it's literally just a bowl that descends inwards, and it's just nothing but mud. And the tank continues to drive in circles until the end of time. And so with that, that's the end of the video, and I gotta say, looks like the Russians might be lost. We're now going to be moving on into the next clip of Location Unknown News, where we can also see a Ukrainian driving a car as fast as they can, and shrapnel goes through the windshield while they're driving it. But before we move on to this, I just saw the poll, and it's unanimous. 81% of y'all want the goal to be raised, and we aren't one to say no. And so we're going to be raising the goal to 15K. If we reach 15K, we will revisit this and see about going even higher. So let me go over here. We're already at 12.6 nearly. So let me go to the goal. We're going to raise that to 15. And we're golden. It's up to 15 now. And give me
yeehaw.
There we go. It's now up to 15, and everyone's going to start racing their way up to the next $2,500 to get to 15K.
Oh,
so with that,
Enforcer, I think somebody said sleeping orcs.
Where?
I'm not sure. I didn't see it, but it got me worried.
Well, there wasn't any in that video. I can promise you that. I think they're talking about the crew inside of that tank, but once again, I think they're just lost. And don't you think that was a lost Russian tank crew, Matthew? They just didn't know where to go, so they kept driving in circles.
Could be.
I'm pretty sure that that's what it was. It couldn't have been anything else. Take the hint, everyone. Take the hint. Anyways, here's the next video of the Ukrainians driving down the road, and shrapnel just grazes this driver inside of this car. Also, Matthew, did you notice that this is a British car? It's got the steering wheel on the wrong side.
That's weird. What kind of car is it? I can't tell from the interior.
I really don't know. And sadly, we don't get to see the steering wheel to see a logo. And I know that someone who's from Britain, there's a lot of viewers from Britain, they'll be like, it's not on the wrong side, stupid, it's the right side. And I'm sorry, but for Americans growing up the way we do, this would be the wrong side of the car. But, it's all relative. So anyways, they're driving as fast as they can, and look at, oh my god, that's it. It went right by his shoulder.
You mean that Tokyo Drift music right now?
Yeah. And that was an incredibly close call right there. I'm happy to see that they both made it out, and the guy was just kind of, I guess, in a little bit of shock that shrapnel flew that fast by him through the windshield. But it's still good to see that they made it out all right. Also, something else, maybe someone wants to call the cops on these two hooligans, because I think they're driving a little bit too fast. I'm sure that the speed limit on this road is not 90 miles an hour.
Shoo, if they hit one pothole, it's over.
Oh, the suspension is going to turn into sand if they hit anything, but man, look at that speed. But with that, that's the end of the video, and still, it's impressive to see that these Ukrainians deal with so much as they continue to try and retake the ground. Moving on into the next clip of Location Unknown News, we also saw the Ukrainian army come under shelling in another video, once again showing you the rigors of what an offensive can entail. When you see the artillery shell land right on their tree line, and they all hit the deck.
Рюкзак! Прилет по нам! Прилет по нам!
And we hear the next round coming in right there when the video ends. But you gotta say, it's a pretty tough situation that a lot of Ukrainian forces find themselves in offensives, as any fighting force would. And once again, I gotta say, the bravery of these men and the kind of wounds and the kind of casualties that they take during offensives is something to be mourned, and also something to be admired, that they would willingly march into this to try and help retake the land that a lot of Ukrainians have been stuck inside of under the, I guess you say, watchful eye of the Russians. And so with that, once again, keep in mind that tonight's fundraiser is for Revive Soldiers of Ukraine, which will be helping out these kinds of brave Ukrainian soldiers that get wounded serving on the front lines to defend and retake land to free and liberate Ukrainians that are behind the Russian lines.
Oh! Did you see that?
Oh my lord! Mark is back at it again, throwing down $2,200. And I'm going to have to take a pause from the ultra hype because my voice almost just felt like it ripped. But we just reached 15K. Well,
dang.
Let's let Mark, yeah, taking away the suspense of it all. You gotta calm down. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you so much once again, Mark, for the massive amount of support. It's unbelievable to see. We just reached 15K. 15K on
That's
tonight's
crazy.
Fundraiser. It's
just like that.
Just like that. Just like that. With a snap of a finger, Mark got us up to 15K. And I gotta say, everyone.
Dang,
oh,
Linda Joyner put in a 500 too. How about that?
Well, I guess you could say that Linda joined her. But anyways, I thank you so much, Linda Joyner, for the $500 donation to Revive Soldiers of Ukraine. We're probably well over $15,000. We're probably moving on towards 16. And I said a while ago that we would revisit raising the goal again once we reach 15K. I didn't know that we would raise $15,000 in under an hour of streaming. So, should we raise it again? Should we run a poll for that?
Should we?
I think we should. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the next clip of Location Unknown News, where we can then see some Belarusian volunteers firing at the Russians while we have that poll put up and hopefully get an answer. We now see the Belarusians riding onto the shell. We now see them loading the mortar, dropping the round, and boom. And now we can see that mortar round going down range and hitting the Russians where they are. We now see them continuing to adjust the mortar. We can also see one of their butt pads. I don't know what it said. Let's look at that again. Let's see. Ruski idi nahoy. This is like Russian idiots or something like that.
That's like one of those pads you sit on when you go to like a stadium or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a pad that a roofer would wear when they're putting up shingles.
Interesting.
Yeah. Really cool. But anyways, with that, that's the end of the video, and it's nice to see that the Belarusian volunteers are continuing to
look at that outro.
Yeah, I know they got a cool outro too. Like we need
that was like some insane graphics on that.
We need these guys to do our outro. And also, real quick, before we move on, and I know that some people are going to be like, "Go to the news," like we're not helping out Ukrainian soldiers or anything with this fundraiser. But 79% of y'all, once again, the unanimous decision to raise the goal to 20,000. Now, this one is going to require some elbow grease. It's going to require some effort and some courage from the Lee Spring Army. I have no doubt at all. The Lee Spring Army, of course, can do whatever we set out to do. We've always done this from the beginning. But it's time to declare General Order number 3, the third time that this General Order has ever been declared on this channel, that if you have $5 to put up on this fundraiser, it is now time to do it. The goal will be raised to $20,000 here in a second, and once we raise it to $20,000, we've got to get this thing on the road. We got to get this thing moving and rolling, and I hope to see...
What was the order again?
General Order number 3.
Oh, number 3. That's right. There we go.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I had General Order number 3 down.
Had to make sure I was activating the correct one.
And so, General Order number 3 is now in place. If you have $5 to put in $5. We're going to get to $20,000 tonight. This is going to be one of those nights. And I hope to see that here within the next 20 minutes. In fact, just to make sure that we lead from the front, we are going to be throwing in our own support. We're going to be throwing in $50 towards General Order number 3. So real quick, let me put that in. Hang on. All right, so there we go. Continue. And here comes the General Order number 3s. So real quick, everyone, I'm going to send in my $50 as well to make sure I join you all in this order. And there we go.
I saw it.
And there it is. It's in the middle of all of them, and they are flying in right now at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And while that continues, we are going to roll forward with the news into the next clip, where we can then see a smoking Russian tank. Quite the smoky hokey. Also, we got to mute that because we can already hear that breathing in that music. And we can see the Russian tank doing a little bit of smoking, and it looks like the Ukrainians have made a brand new barbecue pit. And so with that, that's the end of the video, but it's nice to see that another Russian tank has been taken out and is smoking. And while we were watching this Russian tank smoking, in case of y'all haven't seen the live chat, it looks like General Order number 3 is sizing up to be a great success. I don't know if you've been able to even catch, Matthew, the larger donations that have come in General. Oh man, Matthew is still on the ball, even with all of these General Order number 3s coming in. We'll call those GE3s from now on, because that's a long thing to say. But still, look at it go! We have already gotten from 15,000. Oh my! Wait a minute, hang on. Oh, sorry. The hype there was real for a second. Yeah, but it looks like they keep on coming in. And goodness, I mean, this is insane. We've already raised, I believe, $2,500 from General Order number 3 alone, which is honestly unbelievable. Let's see if we can get to 20K from the General Order number 3. And so with that, we're going to be moving on into our next bit of Location Unknown News, where we can see the Ukrainians destroy one of Russia's most modern and finest vehicles, the T-80 BVM. And when I say it's a fine vehicle, it's a bit of an exaggeration, but here's the video. When you see the T-80 BVM right there, it looks like a track may be missing from it, rolled up right in front of it, and a nice little wad. And look at that thing. The rear spoke... Actually, the engine is still on. It detracked itself, and that rear sprocket that would be, I guess, its drive sprocket is still spinning at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
And that's how they get stuck. That answers my question from earlier.
Yeah, that's true. They get stuck in a pretty interesting way. And this one really just detracted itself. The tracks just came off, and that was the end of the tank. But we can see that there was also another T-80 BVM in front of it. And so now 2 T-80 BVMs have been abandoned by the Russians, and that is 2 T-80 BVMs that the Russians will never get back, probably. The Ukrainians might come around and destroy them later on if they can't recover them, and if they can, they've got themselves some fairly decent, old but highly upgraded tanks. We're now going to be moving on into our last bit of Location Unknown News, where you can see that the Ukrainians have captured a Russian radio, and just in case if y'all can understand Russian, while we keep an eye on General Order number 3, and see how it's going, we're going to let this radio play, so that way y'all can hear what a Russian radio sounds like.
Ты залупа правильно, сука, посчитала, уёбок!
Sounds like a lot of cussing going on.
Ну сейчас я уже согласен, там не только спецура стоит. Отправились до предыдущего на огонь. Я тебе, сука, куплю, блядь, анальные бусы, нахуй. Анальные бусы, блядь.
This guy on the radio is cussing like a sailor. Like, every other word is a cuss word in Russian.
Are these Russians on a Russian radio, or Ukrainians that tapped into a Russian communication?
These are Ukrainians that have captured a Russian radio and they've just left it on and they're listening to what's being said. And this guy is just going mental on his end. Like, he's just going into a cussing rant.
That's the first time I've ever seen the Ukrainians use a bow thing.
Yeah, when you're a Russian, invading Ukraine at 10, but you also have to become an economic puppet by 11, so you buy a Baofeng. Oh man.
Это контент.
Прикинь, как возмутило, на полкана промахнулся чувак всего лишь. А снаряды дорогие.
And so with that, that's the end of the video. And a lot of y'all are actually saying in the live chat that this video is out there with subtitles. Now, real quick, I don't want anyone to blow up Matthew's DM, but if one of y'all could find this video, one of our moderators from Discord, and send that to Matthew, and then Matthew can send it to me, I would be highly appreciative, so that way we can try and show the dubbed version of this on YouTube, because we all know that the subtitles are better than the dubs. I don't even watch that. I don't even watch anime to know what that means, but I hear it a lot from people who watch it, so I don't know. Maybe y'all watch it or something. Anyways, we're going to be moving on from this little bit of news and on out of the location unknowns and into the next amount of news here in the Northeast, starting off with some news about the 30th Brigade moving forward. Huh, that's kind of odd. I wonder what they're doing. It looks like they're retaking ground. Look at that. BTRs on both sides of the street just burned up.
Не заховались. Видно, що десанти БТРС. Це центр, бля. Воно клуб.
We see them walking around, just looking at the destruction that they have wrought on the Russians. So with that, that's the end of that little video, but it's a real nice sight to see that the Ukrainians just marched through these towns, and you can see the wreckage of all of these destroyed and burned out Russian vehicles, letting us know that the Ukrainians are succeeding by leaps and bounds over the Russians, and not only that, but they're retaking the ground as well. With that, we're now going to be moving on further down the line, and behind the line as well, to the Cave Monastery, where we saw that a Ukrainian has now followed up on the area and taken some footage of all of the destroyed Russian tanks that they found around the Cave Monastery. And so here's the video.
On y va? Okay.
A T-72B3, never to be used again. A waste. Another one, never to be used again. A waste. Yeah, I think that requires some assembly. Yes, we'll have to pull out the manual on that one.
Okay, sure.
And a nice monastery as well. That is not the Cave Monastery, but that is one of the, I believe, churches in town, the basilicas in town. So with that, that's the end of the video. But I gotta say, it's pretty neat to see that the Russians are having kind of a tough time. Real tough time, as a matter of fact, because they're not even in this area, the front line anymore. They lost this area about a month ago, and now they're all the way over here near Kreminna, which brings us to this little bit of news, starting off with some more destroyed Russian vehicles. See this Russian camp filled with Russian supply trucks that more or less appear to be needing some supplies themselves. It seems like the suppliers have now become the supplied, and they were supplied with a decent amount of high explosive filler.
Даже вон еще до сих пор что-то дымит, если камера передает.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my lord. Mark just threw in 2,750 Canadian dollars and just put us over $20,000 raised. We just did it. Thanks to Mark and General Order Number 3, the two combined were able to fill in the $5,000 gap that remained on the third goal of the night, and we've now reached $20,000. $20,000. I want to thank everyone who supported General Order Number 3 and threw in their $5, and also Mark, who helped out getting the other half of the way there by throwing in a single massive donation again to tonight's fundraiser.
Mark said he's not taking it to 30. 20 is the limit.
And we aren't going to be moving it up from here because this is the third goal of the night, and I would have to say that 20 is great enough. We started off with a goal of 10, and we've already reached twice that, so I don't think we're going to try and become too ambitious and go up another. We're also not going to declare another general order tonight, but oh my god, I gotta say, it's unfathomable. I mean, what in the world do we even say, man?
Mark is one of the most generous people I have ever seen in a very long time. Like, the amount of support he puts into these fundraisers is truly, like, I guess you could say inspirational. It's crazy to see.
And I gotta tell you, Mark, I thank you so much for supporting this fundraiser. You've done this multiple times now, and I just gotta say, I thank you so much for being such an incredibly kind person. I'm sure that a lot of people, if they were in your position, would also love to do the same thing, but there are not a lot of people who can support a fundraiser like this. And I've got to thank you so much for having such a large heart, such a kind heart, because you've supported Matthew and me in helping to keep these streams running a whole load, and you've also helped to support these fundraisers a massive deal as well. And so, of course, while I'm giving my huge thanks to Mark, I would like and I would love to ask that everyone who is watching and everyone who's in the live chat right now throw out a massive thanks to Mark again for throwing in another unbelievable amount of support to tonight's fundraiser. He is helping us to reach goals that we would have never thought were possible. In fact, before these streams start every night, because my family, of course, they're always incredibly interested in how insane these fundraisers can get sometimes, they asked, how high are you going to set the fundraiser goal? I said $10,000. And my mom went, ooh, that seems kind of high. Are you sure you can even reach that? And now we're here at $20,000. And that's the funniest part about the whole thing. I honestly thought the 10,000 may have been a little too ambitious tonight to reach. But Mark, of course, Mark will never let us think that anything is a little too ambitious. So we got all the way up to 20,000, thanks to everyone who's thrown in support to tonight's fundraiser, and also a huge amount of this has been done by Mark. And so thank you so much once again, Mark. And we're now going to wrap up the past 5 seconds of this video. And now we're going to be moving on into the next segment of news. And honestly, at this point, y'all, and I'll just let y'all in on like a mental mindset with me. These Sunday streams aren't really about the news. They're more so about the fundraisers. And so once we reach a goal, I really feel a lot of pressure get lifted off of me. And then once we create a new goal, like we raise it, then there's a little bit more pressure on me again, because I'm like, oh man, we really got to reach these fundraiser goals. But now that we've reached 20,000, the pressure's off me for the night. So we're just going to go through the rest of this news, knock it out, and then get into the question segment. And we don't really have a lot of news left, as a matter of fact. We've only got, I think, 7 more pieces, including the speech from Zielinski. So before we move on into the next bits of news, more in the Seversk area and further south, we're going to take a quick pause to address the polls, and also to address 3 questions from the chat. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, folks. So as you know, we have hit that $20,000 goal. So twice as high as we thought it was going to go tonight. So very impressive, and thank you all very much for that. Also, before we get to our poll and a few questions, let's recognize a few more top donors. We have a $200 donation from Chip Kerwan. We also have a $100 donation from Cindy Mitchell, Kaltenberg, BC Skyman, Jeff Whaley, as well as several $50 donations. The first one is from Magic Sky Girl. The second one is from Rumpel Stilchen. Also Axel K, Captain Chris 1220, Linda Joyner, Joe, and Dutch R. Jen. And those are the top donations for the moment. So Enforcer, guess what they get?
And of course, to everyone who sent in support. I know Mark has almost become a hog of our attention at this point, because Mark just blows everything out of proportion with the amount he sends in support. But everyone tonight has contributed massively to these fundraisers. Everyone who adhered to General Order number 3 and threw in a $5 support, I thank you all so much. We're not able to list you all off, but collectively, y'all raised in just minutes around $2,300 additionally to tonight's fundraiser, which tells you the power of a mass amount of $5 donations. You can get really far off of a general order, which is really honestly kind of cool, Matthew. We've had 3 of those, and maybe, Matthew, we ought to start working on a merch run that is about general orders in the future. You know, like general order number 1 or number 2 or number 3. Because in case y'all are wondering about the numbering system, we are doing the general orders and their numbering system off of how many we've done. So over this channel's fundraising history, we've only done, as of tonight, 3 general orders. The next time we call one, it'll be general order number 4, which these are incredibly rare, and I think y'all have all been here for channel history tonight, as we've once again raised 20K. But still, with that, thank you all so much to all of y'all for y'all's support. It's unbelievable to see that everyone just cares so much about Ukraine still, 31 weeks in, and that we've done this once more. And so with that, let's hit those polls.
All right, so our one and only poll for the moment, very simple. Do you own a Baofeng radio? It looks like 11% said yes, 89% said no. So guess what, folks? Enforcer Matt owns 2 Baofeng radios. They're the UV5R type. I have one with the, I'm trying to turn around and look at it. One with the large antenna on the top and also the extended battery pack. And I just basically use it to listen to different radio frequencies because I don't have an FCC license to transmit on it. And also, I really don't have a reason to either. So I don't need to get one. But it looks like only 11% have one. So Enforcer, what do you think about that?
Well, I gotta say, Baofeng radios sound kind of dodgy, you know, just because they're Chinese.
They are a little bit.
Yeah, you know, they kind of sound a little dodgy, but you know, it's interesting. I don't really have a lot to add to that one, and I got to be honest. And so that I hope I addressed that poll. And also, Mark said, I just saw this, man. Mark said he's a narcissist, and I think if you're a narcissist and you're helping out a fundraiser that much, I think you deserve to be a narcissist and get a lot of attention, to be honest. But with that, we are going to move on to the next poll, and if we don't have one, we are on to the questions.
All right, and also, I want to point out one more thing. I saw a couple people saying something in the live chat about the fundraiser, and I just want to say that even if you can only put in $5 to the fundraiser, if that's all you can put in, that is all good with everyone because it's better than putting in nothing, and it lets us know and lets everyone else know that your heart is in the right place. Some people can donate more than others, and we totally understand that if you can't. But thank you to everyone, including the people that have donated just $5 or less. Thank you to all of you for supporting the fundraiser because it adds up. Without all the smaller donations, it wouldn't be up to 20,000. So we appreciate everyone.
And of course, I want to say that once more. A lot of people sometimes think, oh man, you know, I can't throw in like $50 or $100, you know, you know, this isn't right. And one thing I got to say is that it doesn't matter what the amount is, as long as your heart's in the right place, and if you just give like $1, you know, like when you watch these streams and it's super chats to support this channel. I don't even say that. Like, just watching the channel and just throwing in like a comment in the live chat, like, hey, I appreciate your work. Thank you so much for doing it. That is great by me. I find that to be as great as support, like super chat support. You know, so, but with fundraisers, it is a pretty high goal. We are actually helping out people overseas. And of course, if you can't send in anything, that's totally understandable. I'm not going to be like, oh, look at you, you know. I totally understand. Everyone's been in that position at some point in their life, and so there's no problem by that by any means. But just throwing in $1, while we can't call out everyone on this channel who put in $1 or $5, we still see y'all, and there are Ukrainians out there that will be supported off of it, and in that way, the support really does help, especially if like 1,000 people put in $1 each. You've just raised $1,000. So of course, any amount means a lot to us, even if we can't call it out. Just wanted to let y'all know again, just in case, if you were questioning, well, what? I'm not Mark. I can't throw in $2,000. That's totally fine. We appreciate everyone, any amount of support that can be sent in. And so with that, we are now on to the 3 questions.
All right, and let's see here. Looks like our first question is from Contract Work, who says, Enforcer, after losing so much hardware and troops in Ukraine, could Russia survive an attack from a hostile country? For example, if China wanted to annex territory from Russia, are they too weak?
Oh, Russia would have been too weak from the outset pre-war to have really resisted a Chinese invasion. They rely entirely on their nuclear arsenal to deter people from chipping away at their territorial integrity. But to answer that question, at this point, they certainly wouldn't be ready to do anything like that, and they wouldn't be able to defend at all. On top of that, excuse me, sorry, the coffee just got to me right there. Hopefully, did you hear that, Matthew?
Yes.
Oh, dang it.
I was going to play it off, though.
All right. I'm sorry about that, everyone. For some reason, the coffee got to me, and it was literally just instantaneous. But anyways, if we look out here at the logistical structure of this part of the country, there isn't anything out here. I mean, like, if you look at it on satellite view, there's just this one road. And it's like a 2-lane highway with, like, 2-lane highway-wide shoulders to both sides. There's not a lot out here, and really the only railroad that runs through this area is the Trans-Siberian Railway. So it's not really like the Russians logistically could have even defended the Far East, and especially now that they don't have the forces or the vehicles or the numbers, they wouldn't be able to do anything out here at all. I mean, they would be defenseless. That's why they rely on the nuclear arms, like I said, to make sure that their country remains intact, and other countries don't just march in and start taking stuff that they wanted to. And so with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well. And also, pre-war, the Chinese already had a larger and probably far more competent military than the Russians did, along with a larger military budget, I believe by a factor of 2. And so they would have been able to win economically alone. Also, the Chinese GDP is like 14 trillion, and the Russian GDP is like 1.2 trillion. So the Chinese would have been able to finance a war a lot better and a lot longer than the Russians could have ever anticipated. And so with that, we are on to the next one. I hope I answered that question fairly well.
All right, and up next, we have a question from Lord Loxy, who says, Hey, Matt, can you bring up the topic of an apparent report about the general responsible for the mobilization found dead?
I actually haven't seen anything like that. Russian, dead. List of Russian generals killed during the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. That's a lot of them. The 41st Combined Arms Army. That was the first guy we actually ever reported. He was the first general killed in the war. On the 1st of March. Isn't that pitiful? I mean, like, really think about that, man. The war had just started 6 days before that. It was just a week in, and the major general of the 41st Combined Arms Army, you just get slaughtered on the 7th day of the war.
Yeah, that's really weird. You don't see that happening too often in any other army.
Oh, no. Let's see. Status. These are claimed. But then again, if they're claimed and there's no proof to disprove it this late into the war, they were killed. We can see that these guys were killed as well. When you see that a retired major general was killed. Oh yeah, this is the goofball who was in the Su-25. Remember that, Matthew? He hopped in when he's like, let's go for a flight, and they got shot down by a Stinger. That was that guy.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, he was killed in May. We can see here this last guy, Roman Kutuzov, which we also reported as well. He was killed on the 5th of June. Apparently, he was
an enforcer. I see everyone saying that he was found dead outside his house in his garden today.
Oh, really? Isn't that nice? I'm sure that the plant...
That's a coincidence.
Yeah, what a coincidence. In a garden of all places. It's like the Russians are trying to grow their own sunflowers now. But what's his name? Like, does anyone have the name of the guy?
Let me look through real quick and see if I see it. Let's see. I see people saying Lieutenant Colonel. If somebody could put that in the live chat, because the name was not in the question, so I'm not really sure which name it actually is.
Killed.
Some people say he apparently hung himself. So either he ended up in the garden. He definitely didn't hang himself on a flower. There's no telling what happened with that. Let's see. Oh, he woke up dead. Yeah. That's an interesting thing.
Like that.
How can you wake up dead?
We've always wondered that, Matthew, me, ever since we watched an episode of Deep Space Nine where the Ferengi, I think his name was Quark, he said, "I'm not saying that, or you'll wake up dead one morning." Or like, how long do you wake up dead one morning? You know. But
I saw Hulk Hogan say Malik, Malyk.
Roman Malik. Let's see here. Dies impossible suicide.
Look, the article says doubts. It's like the whole thing is suspicious. We have a lot of doubts. We need your consent. Huh.
Oh, this is a British website, so, you know, instead of saying, "Would you like cookies?" they go, "We need your consent. We and our partners."
That sounds more serious for some reason.
Yeah, it sounds a lot more ominous, but it's the same question, so we'll agree to it. Troop mobilization has been found dead in suspicious circumstances. Oh, okay, whatever. It didn't even matter. Let's go to the next one. How about this one? In charge of Russia's key efforts to mobilize against Ukraine, was found dead under suspicious circumstances, a report said on Sunday. Malik was said to be a close aide of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Why in the world are all these things popping up? And was found dead at his residence in Russia's Primorsky area village. An investigation has been launched into his death, and suicide has not been ruled out as a cause by Russian police, reports said. This is the latest case in a string of mysterious deaths of Putin's close allies. Last month, Russian oligarch Ivan Petrin was found dead in a mysterious condition in Vladivostok, a CNN reporter had stated. Notably, Roman Malik's death comes amid many reported assaults on Ukraine mobilization offices around Russia as resentment increased over Vladimir Putin's referendum for a military call in September, a Hindustan Times reporter said. Well, that doesn't add a lot of credibility. Anyone could say anything. Anyways, teams of armed enlistment officers working with the police have been forcing men to join the army in many Russian cities, the Mirror reported. Vladimir Putin announced partial mobilization of Russia's 2 million-strong military reserves to defend the motherland, its sovereignty, and territorial integrity. Reports of such mysterious deaths of Russian executives are not new. Out of all the businessmen who have died in the last 7 months in Russia, 6 were reportedly close to Vladimir Putin. They were associated with Russia's 2 largest energy companies. And so with that, I don't know what the hell all of these... Why in the world, Matthew, are all these weird ads always on these stupid sites? Like, what the hell is this? Well, let's
Did you see the ad? Go back down a little bit.
The anime ad one?
On the
yeah.
right.
Looking for a
snack.
Looking for a snack?
I'm not even going to ask what that's supposed to mean.
I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. Like what the hell? Revzilla? Oh, cool. Look,
that's a motorcycle store. That's a clean store, actually.
I don't even know where the hell these ads are coming from. I haven't looked at motorcycle stuff in, like, I think a month and a half. Like, ever. And so now I'm getting these ads for, like, World War II aviator goggles. I don't even understand. And what in the world is this? Laxmi? Like, what is that?
I don't even want to know.
Anyways, we're going to move on from News 18, which has got probably the weirdest ads we've seen so far. And also someone just said, giggity. Anyways, moving on. It appears that a lot of people are dying under suspicious circumstances, and we don't have any exact information on this guy in particular. But I would have to say that I think that fella probably didn't die by suicide. He probably died by something else. And so with that, we are going to be moving on, I believe, to the final question of this segment, and then we'll be moving on to the next one.
All right. And you said the last question?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, so the last question of this segment goes to Scott Mensing, who says, did you see Zelensky contacted Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, to be an ambassador for United 24 fundraiser for drones for Ukraine?
I did not see that. That's kind of weird, and I wonder how that would go, but, you know... I don't really know where to go with that, because I don't really know a lot about Mark Hamill beyond him being Luke Skywalker, because, you know, I'm not really into modern pop culture a lot, but still a pretty interesting thing nonetheless, and I thank you for sharing that with us. And so with that, we've now addressed the last question of the segment, and it's now time for us to cover the remainder of the news, and then finally get to the speech from President Zielinski. And so starting off in the Seversk area, we saw some peons in action. Also, we can hear the music playing, but look at those things go. We can see them firing again. They actually got a pretty fast fire rate here. Also, look at that smoke ring. That was cool. Another one.
That's wild.
Yeah, that's wild. Man, these things are going to town.
Is it just the camera, or is the smoke actually yellow?
It is kind of yellowish. Some of the larger guns, when they fire, they create like this yellowish looking smoke, although it's smokeless powder. It's kind of bizarre, actually. You can actually see that same kind of effect coming from a 16-inch gun on a Iowa-class battleship when they fire. Kind of neat. And when you see this one over here being packed up to leave, and when you see that one fire off a final shot, once again leaving a massive puff of smoke. And once again, it's really cool to see that these heavy Pion batteries are in action and taking it to the Russians, literally. With that, we're now going to be moving further down the line into the area of Soledar, where we saw some more fighting near the area of Bakhmut. I believe this time, although this guy has an M4, it says, Russian soldiers fighting near Bakhmut. Return fire and artillery shell exploding can be heard, but I don't think the Russians have any M4s. You see something fire in the tree line. Now you see the soldier firing off their M4.
Wait, was that semi-auto?
I think it was.
I didn't see a full auto option on that switch.
Huh. What if it's just a normal AR-15?
Yeah, it might be.
And if it is, that's pretty cool to see. Of course.
How'd they get that?
I don't really know, honestly. And also, Matthew, let me make sure to start a firestorm in the live chat by saying that AR stands for assault rifle. And so with that, Darren's gonna be ripping my head off in a minute. Actually, I know that right there, leaving this 20-second gap while I'm just pulling y'all's chain here, is about to cause a million people in the live chat to go insane. It stands for Armalite. That's a huge misconception apparently that's out there, is that AR stands for assault rifle. So with that, we're now going to be moving out of the area of Soledar, and of course the Ukrainians are holding the line in that area and making sure to keep the Russians at bay. Now we're going to be moving further down to the area of Avdiivka. And I'm waiting for it, Matthew. Someone's about to say something like, oh, but anyways, we can see a Ukrainian perspective of a firefight.
There it goes.
Yeah, there it is. Someone said stands for Armalite rifle. Yeah, everyone's saying Armalite. I already know that, y'all. I was just pulling y'all's chain, and I got
Alpha Dog said, no, it doesn't.
I got some of you. Actually, I got a lot of you. But with that, we're going to show y'all this video of a Ukrainian, I guess you could say perspective of a firefight in the Donetsk region. Hear a little bit of whistling. You see him peeking around the street, firing off an AT weapon. That was some nice little burst right there. Now I see them firing off a little grenade launcher. That was nice. Also, what's up with Casper?
Oh, wow.
Did you see that down there? It says Casper down there.
On the sign?
Yeah. What's up with that? Like, do they have something for cat? Wait a minute. It's a Ukrainian joke. They're turning Russians into Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Отработал, давай еще! Давай еще!
Dang. Gosh, this is a fight.
Чуть Карпаты! Дави Дикого, Дикого дави!
There's something about firing a gun in auto that is just so neat. I don't know why. It just is so cool. But Christian Casper said, "You called for me." I just
that was a good one.
Yeah, that was good. I love that, Aaron. Thank you. But getting back to this, something about firing guns in auto is really cool. In real life, is that really effective? No. But is it cool? Yeah. I mean, like, I don't think anyone can disagree with that.
Наступаем, парни! Парни, пидоры,
Apparently the Russians are just running from them right now.
Ты что, ебанус?
I like how the name on this is the flashback and they use like the Star Trek font.
Yeah. We come in peace. Shoot to kill.
На свата выйди, спроси 04. Мы вместе с ними наступаем. Сват, сват! РП!
You can see them still firing. This is the one hell of a firefight. Russians are still running, apparently.
Dang, man, that gun is cool.
Ебать!
Now see them switching out mag again.
Охуеть! Зачугуем! Зачугуем, сука!
I see a lot of y'all saying that flashback is Operator Starsky's friend. And while he's on the front line, also he's dealing with a jam right there. I wonder if we could get him on stream.
Все, наступаем! Потихоньку наступаем! Наступаем! Наступаем потихоньку. Сука, как его...
You see him trying to pull down this mesh wiring here. Wait a minute. Did you see that, man? He tried to pull the post out over here, but it looks like the top just ripped off because it's rotted. Yeah, it did.
Dang.
He finally got it out of the ground. He's trying to get it off the pole.
А?
Все, пошли, пошли!
And yes, O.O. I did notice the other guy's using a suppressor, and that's pretty cool.
And we see him still trying to get the wire off the pole. It is quite a task.
Выйди на свата, пускай
There's some
нас
wire
встретит.
cutters.
Yeah, he really does. You know, World War I had them in this category. Everyone had wire cutters nearly back then.
Дикий, я выхожу. Давай.
I'm
They
just
need
kidding.
a fundraiser for some new Leathermans.
Yeah.
Сват, блядь, передавай БТРу, блядь! Мы уже идем по центральной улице, как принял прием!
Да беттер там, блядь, вон оно.
Давай, снимай быстрее!
Да там тоже забор, блядь. Короче, поебать.
The whole firefight for this poor man has been him trying to take this fence down. Like, there's just a whole firefight going on around him. He's pretty much gardening in the middle of it.
Нива! За нами! Прикрывайте!
Now he's like, screw it, I'm just gonna move out the fence anyways.
Woo! Давай, куярь! Пидоры отступают.
Oh man, that's just neat. Oh, he's all out, he's putting in another mag.
59-я за нами, как принял прием!
Дарахи! Не стреляй пока! Не стреляй! За мной не стреляй!
Firefight still goes on. Still firing at the Russians. This man is just chewing through the ammo, but I gotta say, it's still cool to watch. Now, real quick, I think this actually comes from the man's channel. Let me check. Yes, it comes from the Flashback. Now, this fella right here is actually on the front lines in Ukraine, and he's uploading videos of his experiences out there and what's going on. So with that in mind, make sure to give this guy a subscribe, because this guy is actually out there fighting for Ukraine, and also the people we are fundraising for tonight with Revived Soldiers of Ukraine. And so please make sure to hop over there and give this guy a subscribe, because he's out there actually fighting on the front lines, and that is pretty honorable. And I gotta say, it's quite nice to see what he's actually doing out there and be with him for just about 5 minutes while he's in the middle of making the Russians run for their lives again. And so with that, we're now going to be moving out to the Donetsk area, and while we have seen some activity there, we haven't seen any major frontline changes to adjust for, and also due to operational security reasons, we probably wouldn't change the front lines anyways. Moving on down into the southern front near Vavarivka, we did see a Ukrainian Su-25 on a mission, and this is a pretty long one at that. Here's the video. Oh, we're starting off with some nice bass music. We can now see the Su-25 flying over the fields. It's got that nice Ukrainian, like, light gray camo.
Cool camera mount, too.
Yeah. It's pretty neat. And while this...
It's like one of those 360 cameras, it looks like.
And while this jet flies, and also, yeah, it kind of does look like that. No, we can't make it 360, but one thing I was thinking, Matthew, is that it's crazy to think that soldiers on the front lines can only have 3.5 thousand subscribers. That's honestly nuts. And I feel like if we ever find channels like his again, we ought to try and promote them.
We should.
And, you know, it's weird to me that a guy like that, a guy out there who's risking his life and sometimes sharing with us like he just did then, videos of the escapades and adventures he's having to have on the front lines fighting this war, that he only gets 3.5 thousand subscribers, and somehow there are channels that just blow up. It's kind of weird to me. But anyways, we're going to let this video continue as we watch the Su-25 continue to roar over the fields of Ukraine. It's pretty neat to see. We now see him lifting up, probably to fire off his rockets. And gosh, those are some big boys. Those weren't your normal rockets. Those are pretty sizable. We now see this Su-25 flying over the heavy, thick forest canopy as it continues to fly on.
I like how you can even see the pilot from this view.
Yeah, it's really neat, isn't it? Wow, look at that. That's really a beautiful country out there. With that little valley right there that he's flying over in the middle. Oh, it looks like he's going to fly down it.
Not quite the mock loop, but it works.
Yeah. Now he's flying over a nice... Actually, that's a really nice road. That's well paved. I'm really surprised.
You know that's cool to see from the cars, too, down there.
Oh, yeah. You know it's probably cool to see from the cockpit. We're kind of seeing it from the cockpit, honestly. Just continuing to fly on over the highway. Man, what a neat video to see. I love watching videos of aircraft fly. And this is really a treat right here. A video this long showing a Ukrainian Su-25 in action.
Oh, they caught a bug.
Caught a bug?
Yeah, right there in the camera.
Yeah, and it's just up there in the top. Yeah. Man, that's kind of sad, but yeah, the bug died for his country. These bugs died for their country. Send flowers to their, you know, you fill in the blank. Man, you know everyone on that highway is like, oh my god, it's an Su-25. That is so cool.
Is this known as a frogfoot?
Yes, these things are called frogfoots.
And I just noticed there's like a radiation symbol on the front of it. Do you see that? Like right in front of the 32?
Yes. I believe, I don't know if the Su-25 has a radar. I feel like it probably wouldn't, considering it's a close air support aircraft, but it may have something similar that emits radiation like a radar, and so that's on the front of the aircraft for that reason. And Matthew was about to be sent into his nuclear poll right there. He's like, oh, nukes. He's like, does Ukraine have nukes? Yes or no?
No, we have a poll running already. I'd have to end that one to start a new one.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Oh, man. You know, this guy's having the time of his life up there. It's just fun to watch him do it.
What exactly is his mission, I wonder, right now? Is he just doing surveillance?
I think he fired off his unguided rockets, and now he's just trying to fly back to his airfield without getting shot down. And I think the video's in. Oh, man, the video's ending right there, but wasn't that a treat? Also, wait a minute, Matthew. I gotta try this one. Nicholas Condor said, "You don't win a war by making a bug die for your country. You win by making the other bug die for his country." You know, like George C. Scott in the movie Patton.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, man. But with that, that's the end of that video, and it's really nice to see a Ukrainian Su-25 in action over the skies of southern Ukraine. And so moving on into our last bit of news in Zaporizhia, we saw a massive strike occur within the city as the Ukrainians have still continuously been under the bombardment of Russian missiles that have been hitting the town. And so here's a video of these Russian missiles once again impacting the town of Zaporizhia. And so with that, that's the end of the video.
All right.
But you can see that the unsolicited Russian attacks onto Ukrainian civilian areas continues. And that is the reason why Ukraine should always continue to take out the Russian military as brutally as it can and push them back off the fields of Ukraine and back into Russia, regardless of how far it has to be taken. And so with that, that is all the news we have today from the front lines and around the world concerning the Ukraine war. And so we're now going to be moving into Kyiv to cover the speech from President Zielinski here on day 236 of the war, which will wrap up this news segment of this Sunday night fundraiser. And so without further ado, here's the speech today from President Volodymyr Zielinski. And also let me make sure those subtitles are high enough, and here we go.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. 16 жовтня відзначається Всесвітній день продовольства. Цей день встановлений в пам'ять про заснування спецструктури ООН, що займається боротьбою з бідністю і голодом. ФАО – це продовольча і сільськогосподарська організація ООН. Десятиліттями світ працював, щоб вирішити проблему голоду. І навряд чи хтось із засновників Організації Об'єднаних Націй міг би подумати свого часу, що у 21 столітті ми будемо всі у світі знов змушені боротися із загрозою масового голоду, причому штучного голоду. Голоду, за який відповідальна лише одна держава в світі – це Росія та її терористична війна проти вільного світу. Коли Росія заблокувала наші українські порти і зламала нормальні ланцюжки постачання продовольства, вона повернула весь світ в ситуацію, ніби й не було цих десятиліть міжнародної роботи для продовольчої безпеки. На щастя, українські порти знов запрацювали. Запрацювали на експорт агропродукції. Від липня ми постачаємо саме той обсяг продовольства, який повертає світовому ринку стабільність. Причому саме тим сегментам продовольчого ринку, які забезпечують споживання деяких найбільш крихких країн Африки та Азії. І хоча наші експортні можливості ще далеко не повні, все ж ми змогли експортувати майже 8 мільйонів тонн продовольства морським шляхом. Це більше 300 суден. 60% цього обсягу було направлено в Африку і Азію. Це глобальна місія нашої країни. І завдяки українському постачанню цілі регіони світу зберігають соціальну і політичну безпеку. І я хочу подякувати усім, хто це забезпечує, нашим аграріям, перш за все, нашим транспортникам, нашим працівникам портів, нашим дипломатам і урядовцям. Звичайно, нашим оборонцям країни, які тримають південь і повертають безпеку на море. І нашим партнерам хочу подякувати, які змогли і які допомогли з цією ініціативою. Зокрема, генеральному секретарю ООН Гутєрішу і президенту Туреччини Ердогану. Маємо зробити все, щоб український зерновий експорт тільки розширювався. Це і для наших людей робочі місця, і експортні доходи, плюс кошти, щоб провести посівну наступного року. Але і для світу, всього світу, одна із ключових гарантій стабільності – те, як Україна допомагає збереженню нормального життя у світі, тільки посилює репутацію нашої держави і полегшує нам створення нових зв'язків в різних регіонах. Цього тижня, що починається, я очікую нових міжнародних результатів для нашої держави. А за тиждень, що минає, варто відзначити посилення контактів із Саудівською Аравією. Є вагомі домовленості. Серед іншого, це і рішення партнерів надати пакет гуманітарної підтримки обсягом $400 мільйонів. Це дуже важливо. Маємо найбільш змістовні за 30 років відносини із Саудівською Аравією і саме зараз. Ситуація на передовій. За минулу добу суттєвих змін не зазнали. Ключові гарячі точки на Донбасі, Солидар і Бахмут, там тривають дуже важкі бої. Проте наших сил окупанти кинули всіх, кого могли, зокрема і 2000 зеків. Вони серед найманців саме там. І це зеки з великими строками покарання за тяжкі злочини. Їх на фронті утримують не лише грошима, а й обіцянкою амністії. Ось так російська держава спонсорує терор, шукає по тюрмах вбивць і обіцяє їм свободу, якщо вони вбиватимуть знову. Хтось у світі ще сумнівається, чи варто офіційно визнавати Росію державою-терористом. Навряд чи. Я дякую всім нашим воїнам, які героїчно тримають позиції і під Бахмутом, і під Солидаром, і на всіх інших напрямках, де зараз тривають бойові зіткнення на сході, на півдні держави. Особливо хочу сьогодні відзначити на південному напрямку 60-ту Інгулецьку піхотну бригаду, 17-ту окрему танкову Криворізьку бригаду імені Костянтина Пестушка, 128-му окрему гірсько-штурмову Закарпатську бригаду і 59-ту окрему мотопіхотну бригаду імені Якова Гандзюка за злагоджені дії на Херсонському напрямку і результативне знищення ворожої техніки. Я дякую вам, воїни. Я дякую і Херсонській зенітній ракетній бригаді за успішний захист нашого неба від іранських дронів і російської авіації. Окремо, я хочу відзначити сьогодні ті підрозділи, які забезпечили нам результат в поповненні обмінного фонду. Це надзвичайно важливо. Кожен, хто бере в полон російських військових, забезпечує нам можливість звільняти наших героїв. Я дякую 54-му окремому розвідувальному батальйону імені Михайла Тиші, 80-й окремій десантно-штурмовій бригаді і 92-й окремій механізованій бригаді, які в ході наступальних дій суттєво збільшили нашу можливість повертати українців додому. Ми пам'ятаємо про наших людей, які утримуються в Росії. Ми маємо звільняти їх і маємо звільнити їх усіх, не залишаючи ворогу нікого. Але для цього нам потрібно брати в полон окупантів якнайбільше. І ще одне, про що варто сказати сьогодні. Через російський ракетний терор в деяких містах і районах України доводиться обмежувати постачання електрики, щоб стабільно працювала вся система. Але такі стабілізаційні відключення можна буде не робити, коли ми всі в Україні свідомо будемо ставитись до свого споживання. Споживання у пікові години – це невелика річ для побуту кожної людини, однак дуже вагома в межах всієї енергосистеми України. Наприклад, цієї суботи мешканці Чернігівської області обмежили своє споживання електрики на 20%. Я вам дуже вдячний. А загалом по Україні в середньому на 10%. Київ та область тільки на 7%. Будь ласка, зробіть більше, якщо маєте таку можливість. Від 17 до 23 години маємо скоротити наше споживання електрики. Це такий крок, який разом з іншими забезпечить поразку для російських терористичних планів. Я дякую всім, хто захищає Україну. Я дякую кожному і кожній, хто воює, працює, допомагає заради нашої перемоги. У єдності і у спільних діях наша сила. Сила України. Слава Україні!
And so with that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zielinski, and that also rounds out our news segment for day 236 of the war in Ukraine. I thank you all so much once again for watching. Tonight's been an unbelievable and absolutely impressive night, both with the news we've been able to deliver, as well as the fundraiser we've been able to achieve. At this very moment, the fundraiser is sitting at exactly $22,050, just $50 over the $22,000 mark, and somehow we were able to raise $12,000 more than what we originally anticipated doing going into tonight. It's unbelievable to think that we've been able to do this thanks to the help of all of our members in the Lee Spring Army, and also the help of Mark, who has put in a substantial amount of tonight's fundraiser. And I've got to thank each and every one of y'all, especially Mark, for the massive amount of support that y'all are giving to Ukrainian soldiers on the ground, which will help them to recover from their injuries that they will inevitably sustain in the fighting in this war. And so with that, thank you to every single one of y'all so much once again. And we are on into the question segment. We're going to let Matthew take over from here, guide us through the polls, the top donors in between the last question segment and this one, and also all of the questions we'll be answering for the remainder of the night. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, folks. So before we get into our final question segment to go over the polls, top donors, and also questions, let's see here. Let me get rid of a bot. There we go. Also, Enforcer, I am told that there's some breaking news that apparently there are some kamikaze drones hitting Kyiv right now. So while I'm calling out the top support and also going over the poll, you might want to look into that. I'm seeing a lot of viewers asking for information about it. But moving on to recognize our top donors, we have a $173 donation from Oates Air. We also have a $100 donation from Jared Foster, as well as several $50 donations. The first one is from Guns SMFL. We also have one from Activista, NBD, also Sharp Electric. And those are the top donors for the moment. And like the Enforcer said earlier, we have reached, let's see here, $22,000. I can't see the exact figure on my screen, but man, that is a lot more than we were anticipating tonight. Excuse me, totally stuttered there for a minute. But thank you all for the support. We really do appreciate it. Tonight's been another wild fundraiser night, and I gotta say, I'm proud to be here and proud to be a part of it.
Now, I'm going to say one thing, y'all, about the fundraiser, is that is at least more than $5. And that is really impressive to think that we've been able to fundraise that much. And so I thank you all so much once again for helping us to get there. And sadly, everyone, I know that we usually report things at the moment of the event occurring, but sadly I just tried to roam through all of the places I usually go to find these videos for the news each night, and I couldn't find any video or picture evidence of that occurring, although it certainly is. It'll probably be reported in tomorrow's news, considering that today's news, as far as our stream goes, wrapped up about, I believe, 2 or 3 hours ago. So it'll probably be in Tuesday's news on day 238 of what happened over, I guess you could say, the past 2 hours now. That'll be considered day 237's news. Also, just in case you all are wondering, well, the day really hasn't ended for me. Why is it so that 3 hours ago, the next day started on this stream? Well, the reason being is that this stream and its time, this stream actually started running within the first, I believe, hour of the war beginning. The first missile that struck Ukraine occurred, I believe, at around 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and then this stream was on at 10 p.m. Eastern Time that very night, covering the war from that point forward. And so we're covering the days based off of, I guess you could say, hour 0 of the very start of this war. And so that's why our day flipped over from day 236 to day 237 about 2 or 3 hours ago. And so with that, we will make sure to try and cover that on Tuesday's news, but unfortunately right now, I can't find any video or picture evidence to speak of on it. And so with that, we are going to be moving on into the polls, but once again, thank you to everyone who's thrown in some support in between the last question segment and this one. It does help out massively, and it's also the reason why we got up to 22,000 instead of just 20,000 even. I think right now we are sitting at $22,114. We've gone up another $64. And I thank y'all all so much once again for helping us to get there. It's unbelievable. And the Lee Spring Army has never failed at reaching a goal. And I don't think we ever will. And so with that, let's hear those polls, Matthew.
All right, so we do have one poll to go over, and the question is, which one would you send to Ukrainians? It looks like the most popular option is a Leatherman multi-tool. 56% said to send that, 16% said to send a Kabar fighting knife, 15% said Swiss Army knife, and 13% said Gerber machete. Now, for me, I like Swiss Army knives. They're really cool, but to me, they're for some reason, like, not really usable, or they're a little inconvenient, I guess would be the best way to say it. I actually have a Kabar fighting knife. It's actually behind me on the wall back here. That thing is extremely handy and it's very cool. That would actually be pretty useful in my opinion. But I would have to agree that a Leatherman would serve them very well, especially the Mutt, which is like the gun version of their multi-tool. It has like a little scraper tool on it, all this stuff for ARs, and I think it also works with AKs too. But yeah, I would have to agree with Leatherman. So Enforcer, what do you think?
Well, one second, I'm trying to pull up examples of each. So, let's see. Yes, the old classic K-bar.
Is it K-bar or Kabar?
I believe it, Kabar, K-bar, I'm not exactly sure. And let me pull up the last one, the Gerber machete. Which we have right here. There we go.
That's the food.
Oh, it's a Gerber. So first off, we got the Swiss Army, then we have the Leatherman, then we have the K-bar, and then we also have the Gerber. Out of all of these, I would have to say if I had to cut a wire with any of these, I feel like the Gerber would probably be a little too viscous to really cut anything with. A lot of people are saying K-bar. So it is K-bar. It is a K-bar. The K-bar,
I've always said Kabar, so I've been mispronouncing it the whole time.
The K-bar here, I feel like that wouldn't really do too good at cutting the wire. I think you could throw it at it and it'd probably do the best. This Leatherman, I think if anyone could get it done, I think it would be this Leatherman right here. And then, of course, the last one, this is just a boy on a bike with what appears to be a pistol holster on it, and also he's carrying like a G3. I feel like he could probably get the job done, but then again, he's like a Boy Scout, so I'd leave it up to Leatherman here, because Leatherman's looking scary as all get out. Honestly, if this guy approached me in a dark alley, I too would be very afraid for my life. But anyways, moving on from that, in all seriousness, moving on from the silly examples that I pulled up of each one, I would have to say I think the Leatherman multi-tool will probably be the best one out of them all. And so with that, I hope I addressed that poll fairly well. I hope y'all enjoyed the little jokes I threw in there. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and that was our only poll, so we're moving into our questions. And let's see, up next, we have a question from Packrat, who says, do you think we will see more Russian soldiers turning their weapons on each other?
I think we will probably see a decent amount of Russians with a lot of disciplinary issues. So I think if you're talking about juvenile delinquency, and if that's a possibility, I would have to certainly say that is not out of the realm of possibilities with the Russian armed forces. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one. Also, real quick, everyone, considering that we've reached the fundraiser goal, I see a way for us to round out this stream relatively soon. So we're going to be answering questions for the next 15 minutes. We're going to try and fit in as many of them as we can, and then we're going to round out tonight's stream a little bit early, so that way we can catch up on some sleep and also prepare to enjoy the Monday, which I really do nothing on, and that's great because it's Monday. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And next up, we have a question from Duncan VR, who says, after seeing Russia's missile self-destruct in Belgorod, would Putler's nukes do the same thing? Baba, Muba, Enforcer Matt.
And I'd have to honestly tell you, I think they would probably, some of them, not all of them, would do the same thing. I don't think it would be all of them, but I feel like there would be a decent amount. Probably 10% of them would explode in the silos before they were even launched. Although that's a very arbitrary statistic, and I have nothing to really back up why it's 10%. And so with that, I hope that addresses that question fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a question from Grand Walt, who says, Enforcer, if you have an opinion about why, for now, Ukraine leave Wagner in the Bakhmut area without punishment, the 10,000 that come from training can go and wipe them out, no?
He's talking about the soldiers, the Ukrainian soldiers coming out of training from the West, or the Russian soldiers coming out of the non-existent training?
Let's see. The 10,000 to come from training to go wipe them out. I'm not really sure. I can reread it though.
Let's hear that one more time.
He said, Enforcer, if you have an opinion about why, for now, Ukraine leave Wagner in the Bakhmut area without punishment, the 10,000 that come from training can go and wipe them out, no.
The reason why the Wagner group is still existing in a way in the Bakhmut area is because they hardly exist. They've been hit heavily by the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians have conducted some missile attacks on their headquarters and killed hundreds of them through that alone. So it's not really like they're not being punished. It's just that their numbers are getting replenished somehow, some way. And that's how their unit probably exists. And also, we don't really hear a lot about them anymore. So I think they're on the fringe of almost ceasing to exist. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. But then again, I can be wrong with that. So take it with, of course, everyone's favorite dish. It's a cultural dish in the Lee Spring Army, a grain of salt. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And I'm also told by our mod, Susie Halsey, that it sounds like the LSA is going over there and giving our friend on the front line some support and subscribing. It looks like his subs have gone up a lot from what I've told. So that is good to hear as well. And also, our next question.
One second. Let's go over there and see how many he's got. Oh, look at that. He's gotten several hundred. Last we saw, he had 3.53. Now he has 4.12. Look at that.
What do you know?
What do you know?
He's going to be trying to figure out what's going on when he sees it on his phone.
Yeah, he's going to be like, what's going on? But I got to say, a guy like him deserves a lot of credit. He is over there, just like Starsky was, filming the situations that were going on the ground. And now he is in firefights, and he's actually showing us what's going on over there. A great source of first-hand information. And if anyone deserves a massive amount of views and subscribers, I would have to say that it's that fella right there. And so with that, we are moving on into the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a question from James Dunn, who says, any idea how close this war is to World War I and the miles of trenches? I believe as long as the air is contested, trenches will be used heavily.
I would have to also, everyone, real quick, I saw everyone saying something. The channel, I'm typing it in right now, The Flashback. That's the name of his channel. So make sure to hop over there and subscribe and tell him the Enforcer in the Lee Spring Army is here. But anyways, moving on from that, to answer the question, we don't have an exact mileage of trenches. Unfortunately, we've never been able to get a number on that. But considering that this front line is actually a lot longer than the one that was in France in the First World War, I would have to assume that it's quite a decent amount of trenches. Although it's not from end to end. In a decent amount of places, trenches just don't exist. Trenches in the World War I sense. World War I trenches aerial view. Let me show you a picture of this. These trenches were very thorough, and they went on forever in every direction. Like that. And these trenches don't really exist anymore like that in Ukraine. You'll probably have one trench maybe connected to a reserve trench, and that's it, and it'll only extend for about a half mile in both directions. So it's not going to be as much as World War I, just because the density in a square mile area was going to be a lot larger. So sadly, I don't have any exact figures, but one thing I can say is probably not going to be as many trenches as there was in the First World War. Also, look at that, gosh. Also, it kind of looks a lot like Ukraine in some places. And then here's another picture. You can see some of the trenches that connected the frontline trenches to reserve trenches. They were just straight line trenches. But the actual frontline trenches themselves and others, they always had a lot of zigzags. This one is a perfect example of kind of like a not really a straight line trench. It isn't a straight line almost, like a slight gentle curve, but they had a lot of breaks in it, so that way if an artillery shell landed, the shrapnel wouldn't travel from end to end, like we see in the modern war with the Russians. They don't know how to dig a trench. So with that, I hope that answers the question. We are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Draconiate, who says, don't forget about father of all bombs, as they might use that before tactical nukes. What do you think?
Now, that is a great point. The father of all bombs is the largest non-nuclear weapon in the world. I don't think they would be able to use it, considering it has to be dropped from the back of an Ilyushin 76, much like the Moab has to be dropped out of the back of a C-130 or a C-5. well, not a C5, a C-17 Globemaster. I don't think they would be able to use it because that Ilyushin 76 would probably be shot down before it could ever make it to its target and drop the bomb. So while that is in the realm of possibility, and the Russians could try and pull it off, I feel like the chance of success would be quite low. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question fairly well, but that is a really good point, and we will keep that in mind. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, I saw in the live chat, Titan Intel said drone attack in downtown Kyiv. Is that the Titan Intel from Twitter?
Titan Intel?
Yeah, I've seen some news from Twitter from that account.
Titan Intel. Right here?
I think it might be.
Strategic Meme Command.
Hey. If that's you, put it in the live chat.
Let's see. So yes, he does. This guy actually has videos. Titan Intel has videos of this drone attack. Interesting. If this is the Titan Intel, that would be really cool to know. And so with that, we're going to be moving on to the next one. But thank you once again for letting us know, and we will try and make sure to cover that in Tuesday's news segment. And with that, we are on.
And
go ahead.
And he also said, yes, it is him. So that's cool that you're here, and thank you for also watching. I've seen news from your page before, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a question from Cat Nico, who says, do you think there's any real way out of this other than surrender, death, or annihilation for Putin? I don't think there's any other options.
There really isn't any other options at this point. Those would be the three, and there's some pretty tough ones to say the least. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for throwing in the comment, because I would have to say I would agree with it entirely. There are no other options rather than those three.
All right, and up next, we have a question from Alex Wolf, who says, did I hear right that the U.S. gave the green light to Ukraine to hit strategic targets in Russian territory with U.S. munitions?
I don't think I ever heard that news specifically, at least not on this channel, but they may have. I just have a lack of information to really give a definitive answer, so I'm going to have to declare ignorance at this moment, but hopefully I can get an answer for you in the future. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Ashley Fitzsimmons, who says, with the Russians now making evacuations from Kherson, which is a retreat from the battlefield commanders first, do you believe Belarus/Russian invasion will start right after?
I don't believe so, because there wouldn't really be that much of a, I guess you could say, front line reason. It's not like they would be trying to relieve any pressure off the southern front, considering that the Ukrainians probably wouldn't cross the Dnipro River. So starting it up here would mean that as soon as they retreat and withdraw from the area and the Ukrainians take it, they could also pull a lot of forces off of this front, because the Russians also probably would never cross that river again. So that means that the Ukrainians would have a lot of free manpower to send up north to then quash the Belarusians and the Russians trying to fight up there. And then once they do that, they could then move back south. So in my opinion, I don't think that would be the case. I think if anything, they would try and pull that off before the entire Kherson area collapsed. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and next up, we have a question from Mark, Slavia, Ukraine, who says, I wonder what % of the world GDP is controlled by the Ukraine Working Group of 50 nations. I know the G7 is about 47%.
And I don't know the exact number, but it is going to be quite large. And what was the group that he said support him rather than the G7?
Let's see here. The Ukraine Working Group of 50 nations.
Ukraine Working Group. Cash Working Group. I think that's it. I don't know if this is it. It doesn't look like they give any specific numbers on this site, sadly. But I feel like it would probably be a decent amount over, because the G7, if I remember correctly, the G7 is made up of only a handful of countries. It's only made up of, let's see, oh, wait a minute, the European Union's a member now? It's a non-enumerated member. Okay, so they're kind of a member, kind of not. Anyways, we can see that the United States, the United Kingdom, Japan, Italy, Germany, France, and Canada are all members of the G7, and all together, these guys make up about 50% of the economic activity in the entire world. And we can see
Mark said it's the one created by Secretary of Defense.
Oh, I don't know a lot about that one, sadly, Mark. But one thing I can say is that if it's 50 nations and the G7 is really only made up of 7 nations, let me make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, 7 nations. If this is only made up of 7 nations and they control about 50% of the, I guess you could say, world's economic activity, then I would definitely have to say that 50 nations, most likely the remainder of the European Union, among other countries like South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, and others, these guys would definitely have to make up a massive portion of the world's economic activity, probably around 70 to 60% if I had to make a guesstimate. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. Once again, don't really have the exact numbers at the moment to back that up, and I can't really add together the 50 nations right now because I think it would take a lot of time. But I hope I was able to answer that question fairly well, Mark. And thank you so much once again for supporting the fundraisers as grandly as you did tonight. That was honestly really impressive. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again, Mark.
All right. And up next, we have a question from Jay Bagwell, who says, question, the Chinese are taking measures to remove their citizens from the Kherson region and were public about it. Russia said the same thing recently. Is it coincidental or not?
I don't know if it's coincidental or not. I have a feeling that the civilians are being moved out because it's most likely going to turn into a bloodbath, and the Russians are probably trying to see if they can maybe try and avoid a bad bloodbath occurring that they can't really excuse at all because it was in their, I guess you could say, ability to try and evacuate those citizens. But I'm not entirely sure. I would honestly have to declare ignorance because I don't really know what that would be suggesting if both of them are doing it. And so with that, I hope I addressed that fairly well. And also, I have seen that it looks like some people are plugging another channel in our comment section, and I would like if y'all did not do that. If we plug a channel, we'll make sure to plug them, but we don't want, just like any YouTube channel being plugged out there. So with that, we were on to the next one.
All right, and next up, we have a question from Buddy, who says, there is a lot of Western chatter about negotiation talks. Isn't that undermining the Ukrainian efforts?
It's not really undermining the Ukrainian efforts a lot, because one should always be looking for to see if the other side's willing to compromise or maybe agree to some kind of a peace. But at the same time, you have to make sure that your motives are clear. We're trying to retake all of Ukrainian lost ground, both both 2014 lost ground as well as 2022 lost ground. And so, as long as the negotiations and peace talks keep that in mind, I think it's fine to talk about them, really, because you don't want to close out any avenues and options. You always want to make sure they're all open, just in case if one was advantageous at the moment. And so, with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And we are on to the last 3 questions of the night. And so, what do we got for the next one?
All right, and up next, we have a question from Rob Wall, who says, if Putin were to pass away in the next month due to natural causes, what do you think would be the result for Russia's position for continuing the war?
And can you reread that one again real quick?
Rob says, and also, Enforcer, I'm not sure if you want to get into specifics, if maybe you want to explain why we don't want to plug that channel or not. It's totally up to you if you want to get into that. It's your call.
All right. Because I just noticed someone.
I would keep it topical though. I wouldn't get too deep into it.
We'll keep it topical at best. The reason why we're not wanting a specific channel to get plugged, and I've seen some people bring it up, is that that specific channel has pretty much slighted us in the past when we were trying to bring them on to our show to help us with a fundraiser for Ukraine. They slighted us and said that we weren't trustworthy because they hadn't seen our faces and they didn't believe us. And once we did a face reveal, and of course we've reached out and emailed them about 3 separate times, we never got a response back ever. On top of that, there's a whole bunch of other things that have raised some questions on our end about them, and so we would like if y'all did not talk about that specific channel. We're not trying to get into any drama or any kind of fights or anything, but we have a reason to not really like that channel. So with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, so back to Rob's question. He says, if Putin were to pass away in the next month due to natural causes, what do you think would be the result for Russia's position for continuing the war?
If Putin died of natural causes, someone would obviously, of course, be appointed into the position of the president of Russia. The other thing that would happen is that's a tough one, you see, because it depends on who gets in charge. Because someone might try and act like Putin was a visionary and they need to continue on his legacy, or it might be kind of like a death of Stalin kind of thing, where everyone's like, this guy's a maniac, quick, let's reverse everything he did. It's really hard to tell what would happen. And what Russia's position would be. It would entirely depend on what the overall sentiment was at that point in the Russian government and who was pretty much appointed as his successor. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question fairly well. Of course, take it with a grain of salt, though, because it has a lot of leeway in it and a lot of abilities to go really anywhere. It's really hard to answer that question. It really just depends entirely on the government standing at that point and who they appoint as his successor. And so with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
All right, and that question goes to Scott Kemp, who says, since we are talking about oil and gas under field of grain, riches really, where do you think the eastern boundary of Ukraine should be established?
I believe the eastern boundary of Ukraine should be established at its pre-2014 borders. I believe that would be the best result. Of course, we don't want to have Ukraine taking Russian land because there wouldn't really be any point to that. And also, it would incur some decent amount of administrative costs. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well in a bit of a shorter way. And also, Winnebago Nutshot actually said something about misunderstandings happening and all that. I'll have you know, when the channel we're talking about mentioned said what they said about us, I actually sent them an email saying, hey man, I don't really appreciate you saying that about our channel. We've done so much for Ukraine. We've tried to help out. We're just trying to bring you on your show. Reach out to us if you'd still like to be on the show, or maybe call us to clear out the misunderstandings. And we never even got a reply to that. So it's not really a misunderstanding. For some reason, it's that way. I don't understand why, but honestly, it was...
There's no telling. We've been friendly, so I'm not sure what the deal is. But we've tried on multiple occasions to reach out. We were wanting to have the fella on, but it seems like there's something that we don't know about in the background or something. There's something going on that we're not really even sure about.
Yeah, so, you know, it is what it is. I don't try and make too much of a big deal out of all this when it happened. We just tried to sweep it under the rug and just keep on moving on. But that's... you know, but I hope y'all kind of get due to that. That's kind of really why we don't want people, you know, coming in here and be like, hey, let me plug the guy, and just, you know, letting it go, you know, because it's like, well, you know, the guy kind of slighted us when we were trying to be nice, you know. Anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that final question of the night. I thank you all so much once again for helping this fundraiser get to $22,000 raised. It's been absolutely impressive to get to this point, and thanks to all of you in the Lee Spring Army and y'all's generosity and kindness, we've been able to get this far. As of right now, I believe we are at $562,000 raised, just about, for tonight's, well, for all fundraisers combined over the 31 that we've run. And so, I thank you all so much once again for the support. I hope that y'all have enjoyed tonight's news segment, and if y'all have, please make sure to subscribe, because we run these streams every single day of the week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, except for Mondays. We take Mondays off. But with that, I will see you all on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to report on the next 48 hours of the war in Ukraine on day 237 and day 238. And so, have a great night, stay safe, take care, and I'll see you all then. And of course, Slava Ukraini!